This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our special board meeting, West Basin Municipal Water District. This is December 22nd, and it's about 4 minutes after 1. This is a special board meeting, so we will now, I will now call the meeting to order, and we'll have roll call, please.
Yes, President Williams, I'll read through the roll call. Director Alvarez. Please make sure that your microphone's on. Doesn't appear to be.
It's not going to.
Confirm. Director Deere. Here. Director Gray.
Here.
Director Houston.
Here.
President Williams.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, very good. At this time, Director Deere will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very much. It takes us to the next item is public comment. So today is kind of a special day. This is a special meeting. So for public comment, I'll have our general manager to read how we are going to handle this today.
Yes, thank you, President Williams. As always, West Basin welcomes public participation and comments at each of its committee and board meetings. Our normal process would have anybody wishing to speak during public comment to please identify themselves, and staff will create a queue and then call upon each person, allowing a total of 3 minutes of public comment. As we have several members of the public wishing to address item 8A, an action item on the status and progress report on ocean water desalination project, the chair will also open up public comments after the staff presentation and board member questions are answered. As such, members of the public have a couple of options in which to address the board. One, they can speak under agenda item 4, public comment, or 2, have the staff presentation board member questions and speak after that. Regardless of your preference, a total of 3 minutes will be provided to each member of the public. So if you'd like to speak under item 4, that would limit your opportunity to speak under item 8A. And with that, Mr. President, we are already receiving a request to speak under public comment. It's also worth noting that West Basin staff has secured a Spanish translator that is virtual in order to translate anybody that wishes to have Spanish translated to English.
Okay, well, before we get started here, we will, for those items that are not on our agenda, we can handle during item 4. For those items that are not on the agenda.
That is correct.
So if anyone comes now to speak, they will be speaking on an item that is not agendized. Okay?
Let me add a clarifying point. Our typical process would be public comment would be enabled to address any item within our agenda. We typically don't allow for specific public comment after each specific individual item. They would do so under item 4. But because of the nature of the presentation under item 8A, we wanted to allow members of the public to address it after they received that presentation. So item 4 would be for any member of the public that would wish to speak now, perhaps time related, they're not able to stay for the entire duration of the meeting. However, their total limit would be 3 minutes, regardless of whether they spoke now under item 4 or after item 8A. I hope that's clear.
It was not clear to me. They get to speak, anyone gets to speak more than 3 minutes.
That is correct.
Any time.
Correct.
Is that yes or no?
Yes. 3 minutes regardless.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. So we will now have public comment. on items that are not agendized and then not item 8A.
If you want to clarify.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, please clarify.
Thank you, President Williams and board members. I just want to make sure that the public and us are on the same page. I think that once you hand it off to the general manager, the proposal for the public comment would be to do it the way we usually do it. Anybody who wishes to speak right now would be permitted, would get their 3 minutes to speak on items off the agenda, as well as any item on the agenda. Those who choose to speak on number 8A would be precluded. Basically, they would use their 3 minutes now and would not be permitted to speak again when the item is called.
Okay, so who's keeping track of those folks?
Who's what?
We have staff tracking all of the requests for public comment, whether that be online or in our chat box off to the side. We are also receiving requests for public comment from members of the public that are here and present at the Donald L. Deere building.
Okay. Okay, then we'll just open up public comment.
And for that, President Williams, the only item I see or request is Dr. Williams. He has requested to speak on agenda item 4 and agenda item 8A, but given the clarification, Dr. Williams, do you have a preference as to which item you would like to speak?
No, not at this time. Both items.
If you'd like to speak now, we'll begin your timer.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for Safe Community in Culver City. We're quite concerned regarding the issues for today, but given a little bit of background, I'm retired after 50 years with URS Corporation, Engineering Science, Parsons, and Dubai World. I worked under Mohammed Sheikh El Amani and did a lot of reclamation and irrigation of highly treated wastewater. I reviewed the Water Factory 21 process and groundwater use there. I worked in Dubai regarding thermal and reverse osmosis water supply. But for West Basin, my biggest concern is that you have a district with no water model, no flow chart as to the district's water services and sewage. And you need one from sources to treatment to storage, distribution, delivery, and reclamation. So I would highly recommend that the basin have a good water model for at least roughly a 25 square mile area of the coastal zone going all the way to 110 or to the east. That's the end of the public comment. Do I get a separate one at
That's
8A?
correct.
Thank you.
You have a minute and a half left for item 8A. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would any other member of the public like to speak now on the agenda item 4, public comment? Then President Williams will continue to keep a queue of anybody requesting to speak, and we'll be going through that queue after the presentation and board questions on agenda item 8A.
This is Connor Everett. I was trying to speak and I put it into the chat under public comment.
Thank you, Connor. If you want to go ahead and begin.
Thank you very much. To the board and to all of those listening, it's been a long time tracking the good work that West Basin has done. And I want to say we will continue to support your local water programs. I'm actually doing this internationally. I'm in Canada, distributing my mom's ashes, but I thank you for the opportunity and I look forward to you moving forward with the best things West Basin has done with local water. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alejandro, you've asked to speak under agenda item 4.
I'd like to speak on 8A, but if I could do it now, that would, is that okay?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
perfect. Yeah, my name's Alejandro. I'm a youth activist with the Sunrise Movement, and I wanted to speak on the desalination project because I think we should terminate it under option 1, I believe. The most recent report in the UN has stated that desalination is maladaptation. And I do know that there are several projects in Southern California, one including Poseidon in Huntington Beach, that do want to start using desalination, even though we haven't yet fully used all other methods. From what I've read, I think major urban centers waste about 17% of water due to leakages. So that's one option that we have to improve our water infrastructure, as opposed to consuming more energy, killing wildlife, and increasing rates across low-income neighborhoods. So I do want to stand in support, and I do want to say that the youth is watching the water board, and that we do hope that you make the right decision in securing our future and making sure that making decisions that are not only economically viable, but are also conscious of the climate crisis and the issues that the youth has. And yeah, thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. And President Williams, I believe that concludes all of the requests to speak under agenda item 4, public comment. If it would like to address the board at this time, please let us know.
Hello.
I'm sorry. I
Go ahead.
I heard 2 people.
I made a request for 4 and for 8A, Lydia Ponce.
Ma'am, you can go ahead.
Great. Lydia Ponce calling from the unceded territories of the Tongva people here known as Sagna, infamously known as Venice Beach. I first would like to address the issues on 8A. I am in favor of terminating the ocean water desalination project, as I live 8 blocks from the ocean and I have much love and respect. That is my medicine. That is a place and space I go to, and other people go to church and temple and mosques and other places to worship and to give thanks and to pray. Well, that's where I go. And I would really, really impress upon West Basin to vote yes to terminate. We have an opportunity here to set a bold course for the future of water management in Los Angeles that prioritizes reliability, sustainability, and equity, and fulfills its mission of providing safe and reliable supplies of high quality water to all the communities it serves. And I thank you for this opportunity and for an early holiday gift to terminate. General public comment. I'd like to say that there's 16 counties in Los Angeles, in the state of California, that have, various indigenous people still, living within the coastal zone and within inland, that you could easily reach to find, to develop these relationships 2022. And it's not because for lack of want or time, it's just supporting them with the avenues and the possibilities to access Wi-Fi or access this particular application. I was surprised that I got to join so easily, and I don't even remember adding this app to my phone. So with that, I'm encouraging you and inspiring you that we can all do better, not only in our communications, but also to have many people at the table. And the people that are missing are the indigenous local tribal people, as they have much to say about the sacred spaces on land and water. Those oceans connect us, they don't divide us. And it can't be left to the more affluent residents within the coastal zone and the lands that were basically unceded by a lot of the indigenous people. So I want to say that it's a great opportunity for 2022 to be better relatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I also have a request from Susan. Speak now. Susan, would you like to speak now or after item 8A?
If you're calling Susan Jordan, I would like to speak at 8A.
Okay, we will add you to the queue. Thank you very much.
Steve Murillo would like to.
The next
Hi.
speaker we have is from Martha Camacho Rodriguez, and she would like to speak now under agenda item 4.
Sí, primero me gustaría hacer el comentario en español para la comunidad que está ahorita escuchando esta mesa directiva, que va a ser un voto muy importante.
Yes, I would like to add my comment in Spanish for the Spanish speakers that are viewing this board at the moment, because this is a really important voting time.
So, es importante anotar que esta mesa directiva hoy va a ser algo históricamente en eliminar lo que va a seguir sobre la desalinación de los productos, de cómo uno convierte agua del mar y cómo esos daños han causado muchos efectos negativos en nuestras comunidades indígenas de color y de bajos recursos.
So I would like to add the comment because the board is gonna put a vote at the moment that is gonna be in a long term for the community that it's brown, poor, color, and indigenous people in the desalination process that it's taking place right now that might affect many places as the people of color and also the wildlife.
So, nos da mucho placer ser parte históricamente.
It's a pleasure for me to be historically part of this community.
Y de que siempre vamos a contar en personas como esta mesa directiva.
And that we will count with the people as in this board.
Para hacer las cosas justas para el ambiente.
To do the things justly for the ambience, for everything around us.
Nuestra juventud.
Or youth.
Nuestras comunidades.
Or communities.
Y de tomar en cuenta el dinero que se malgasta cuando uno hace decisiones en contra de la comunidad.
And to take into account the money that is badly managed when we make investments in the community.
So es importante que esta mesa hoy decida en el beneficio para el ambiente.
So it is really important for this board to take a decision for our environment.
Y nuestra comunidad.
And our community.
Que les da el voto.
That gives the vote.
Para que esta gente se siente en ese asiento.
So these people can have those seats.
Para hacer decisiones.
To make decisions.
Que son mejor.
That will be better.
Para nuestra comunidad.
For our community.
So, muchas gracias.
So, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak now under public comment, agenda item 4?
I'd like to speak, Murillo. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can.
Okay, my name is Steve Murillo. I'm a resident of Manhattan Beach and more to the point, El Porto, which is northern Manhattan Beach and very close to the proposed site for the desal. And I'm asking you guys to vote in favor of option 1 to terminate the ocean desal project post haste, especially since West Basin studies have demonstrated that through continuing and increasing efforts related to recycling, groundwater use and replenishment, we can meet the demands without having to go to a desal, which is very energy inefficient and not eco-friendly. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk, but don't know how.
You can go ahead. We'll start.
Okay, my name is Michelle Murphy. I also live in El Porto. I am actually perhaps the closest person. That is to say, I live at the corner of 45th and Ocean. And so you might dismiss what I say or what Steve just said because NIMBY, we don't want it in our backyard. But in a bigger sense, I think that the Santa Monica Bay is all of our backyards. And we need to recognize that it is a very special place that we can exploit and use if we need to, but the need has to be great and it has to be the only and best option. And I believe that it is not now the only and best option to build a desal plant. At some point in the future, who knows what climate disasters await us, but in the future, we'll be able to build it smarter, more ecologically sensitively, and it'll be better. So we should wait to build it until we absolutely need to build it, and we should spend the time now working on the things that South Bay is so good at doing, more recycling, more conservation. There's lots more we can do, and that's the way we ought to be going, and I hope you make the wise decision today. Thank you.
I would like to say something if I may.
Yes, please state your name and you can begin. We'll start your timer.
Yes, my name is Frankie Arona, Haku Haku. I am from the LA area. I am Tongva and Chumash, some of the original inhabitants and people of the land here. And I think that there has been a lack of tribal consultation. I don't think that desalination is a viable solution. I think it's a failed solution. I think we haven't looked into the environmental impacts that it's going to have entirely on the community, the health of the community, the wildlife, the ocean life, and the air that we breathe. I think that giving more control to the corporations with our water is very much in the wrong way. I think we need to take more of the control of our water away from the corporations. And we need to start healing the waters that we've already polluted and contaminated. Again, I don't think that there's been proper environmental impact studies being done, and I don't think there's been enough local community, those that will be directly impacted with the health issues and the environmental issues, not just in their general area, but along the whole coast. And the oceans are connected to this world, and what we do here affects those all over the world and what they do in return. And I think that we need to realize how connected these issues are, and how it impacts all of us as human beings. But as far as right here, right now, this desal plant is not a viable solution. There is many other solutions that we haven't even really put a lot of effort into, including water capture, and again, healing the waters that we've already polluted and contaminated, and taking away control over the water from the corporations. It's not in our best interest in many different aspects in our communities, and I think that we need to have more consultation from the tribal communities and from the POC communities that are directly impacted. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you will see what's right, and I hope that we don't have to live in a time where our children are holding us accountable for our inaction today for the betterment of their future, a sustainable, healthy future. And I really hope that we can make those right decisions today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that concludes all of the requests that we've received for item 4, public comment. Again, we would be opening it back up for public comment for those who have not utilized their 3 minutes after the presentation under agenda item 8A.
Sir, I've signed up to speak. My name is Bob Perkins. May I have a moment?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Bob.
I too live in Manhattan Beach. I believe we have a local problem, which is a shortage of water in the district and in Los Angeles generally, and a global emergency, which is global warming, which is principally caused by excessive use of energy. To solve our local problem, I hope we'll do our very best to avoid exacerbating the global warming energy usage problem, crisis. And in that regard, the proposed desalination plant is if not the most energy intensive possible source of water, it's much more energy intensive than many of the other options available to us. And I hope that we'll be globally responsible, as you folks have so often been locally responsible, and will choose an option for getting more water for us in the short term, which is not desalination. In the long run, that may be necessary. It isn't, as far as I can tell from the source materials that your consultants have prepared, it isn't the only option available now. There are other options which are less energy intensive and less damaging to the planet. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Bob. Do we have any additional members of the public that wish to address the board during item number 4, public comment? Seeing and hearing none, President Williams, I believe we are ready to proceed with the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for all those who spoke. Now we move to item number 5, presentations.
President Williams, we do not have any presentations at today's board meeting.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 6, items too late to be agendized.
President Williams, we do not have any items too late to be agendized.
Okay, then we should move on to our consent calendar, and I will turn that over to our general manager.
Yes, President Williams, our consent calendar includes 2 items. The first of which is item 7A, the IBEC Recycled Water Meter Service Connection Agreement. This item was heard by the Engineering and Operations Committee on December 15th, and it was recommended for approval at that meeting.
Can we take the consent calendar in its entirety?
Well,
You want to take it separately?
we're going to take this separately.
All right, I'll move the approval of the recommendation.
If those who want to vote otherwise can do so.
I'll second that motion.
To approve item 7A. And let me read the recommended motion. That the board authorize the interim general manager to execute agreement W2986 with Murphy's Bowl LLC for the Inglewood Basketball and Entertainment Center, IBEC, Recycled Water Meter Service Construction.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, so then moved and seconded. So we will call for the question.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Director Deere. Yes. Director Green.
Yes.
Director Houston.
Yes.
And President Williams.
Yes. Okay, then that item carries. We'll move on to 7B.
That's correct, President Williams. The next item is 7B. It is an action item. It was also heard in the Engineering and Operations Committee on December 15th. And this item was related to amend engineering design services agreement for recycled water distribution system cathodic protection system improvement project.
Okay, what's the wishes of the board?
I move approval.
It's been moved to approve by Director Deere. Is there a second? Okay, it's been seconded by Director Houston. Any questions? Then call the question for the vote, please.
Director Alvarez.
No.
Director Deere.
Yes.
Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Houston.
Yes.
And President Williams.
Yes. Item carries 4-1. Now this takes us to the action item calendar and to item 8A. And I believe we will have to have some guidance here on how we're going to handle this item, Mr. General Manager.
Happy to do that, President Williams. The next item is agenda item 8A, an action item related to the status and progress report on the ocean water desalination project. This item begins on packet page 44 with a staff report, but staff will be delivering a presentation which begins on packet page 56. Here today for this presentation, we have several members of the West Basin team. Though the presentation will be delivered by some, we have several staff members here on standby to answer any questions received. First, we have Alejandro Cano Alvarado, our engineering number 1. We also have Barkev Masulian, our executive manager of engineering and operations. We have Margaret Moshe, our Executive Manager of Finance. We have Matt Vey, our Water Policy Resources Analyst, and myself, Interim General Manager, to present this item. Next slide. To begin, we do have an agenda. We wish to walk you through the history of ocean water desalination program as conducted by West Basin Municipal Water District. We wish to highlight the project benefits and contributions because we've had tremendous amount of work performed not only by the West Basin staff here today, but also in years past. We do have an EIR that has been certified. We have conducted a cost-benefit analysis. We have further analyzed our water portfolio as is seen in the Urban Water Management Plan. We also have several other factors of work that's been performed by West Basin staff over the past 20 years. And lastly, we wish to discuss our next steps. If we could change to the next slide. For the history of the Ocean Water Desalination Program, we do have Alejandro Cano Alvarado, who is currently our staff member assisting us with this project.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, members of the board. As EJ mentioned, today I will be presenting the history of the Ocean Water Desalination Program. Next slide, please. So in this slide, as you can see, there is a series of milestones that the districts have completed for the past 20 years. From the start, the West Basin Board has been very clear in its direction to staff to evaluate an ocean water desalination project with a very responsible emphasis and approach. And this applies to any potential project. We are responsible, and it's our responsibility to honor the district commitments to water reliability, water quality, sound financial and resource management, as well as environmental stewardship and customer services. West Basin has been a model for responsible desalination. And throughout these years, West Basin have lead and has been a lead agency to perform innovating studies and bring more information to the industry. And the Ocean Water Desalination Program is a great example of that. This effort started back in 2000, 2001, when the district identified the need to have a water supply that will be more reliable and climate resilient. So this effort started with the pilot testing. There was a pilot project that was conducted in 2007. It took about like 7 years to have this testing. So ended at about like 2009. And this was a major step towards assessing the feasibility of the ocean water desalination project. Throughout the pilot project, there was countless sampling points and sampling testing data that was ultimately informed to develop a demonstration facility. This demonstration facility ran for 4 years between 2010 to 2014. It was located at the Sea Lab in the city of Redondo Beach, and the demonstration facility aimed to perform to evaluate the performance of the full-scale reverse osmosis equipment, investigate different intakes, such as the wedge wire intake screens in the open ocean environment, and conduct multiple water quality analyses and assess energy consumption. So with the pilot testing and the demonstration facilities, the district really made a huge effort in investigating ocean desalination and move forward with the further analysis on the environmental impact through the Californian Environmental Quality Act, CEQA process, in which there was a huge extensive evaluation of all 16 aspects of an environmental evaluation. This process was started in 2015 and pretty much ended in 2019 with the environmental impact report certification process. Next slide, please. So as you can see, those were like the milestones that the district have completed. But throughout these milestones, there have been other steps that were conducted as well. The highlighted steps are the steps that have been completed. So starting in 2000 with the need of the water supply that was more reliable, we went through the piloting. There was countless public outreach and meetings, as well as regulatory outreach that was conducted. A survey was conducted in 2015 during this time. Demonstration facility in which there were multiples of studies that were conducted. And throughout this process, the district also developed a program master plan. This program master plan was the baseline and pretty much to identify what was the next step of the process, identifying the environmental assessment. To that step, it was developed the environmental impact report, which was certified in November of 2019. Steps 8 through 10, the permitting, design, and construction and operations are steps that we haven't really developed, and they are depending upon board's approval. So that's pretty much the history of the program as overall. Next slide, please. So with that, I will hand it over to EJ, who will be talking about the benefits from implementing an ocean water desalination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. Clearly, West Basin Municipal Water District's pursuit of ocean water desalination began in 2002 in search of a new local supply of water. Through this effort, we have pursued 20+ years of research and operation of both a pilot and a demonstration facility here in the South Bay. The staff had continued to work as directed by the Board of Directors on a potential ocean water desalination project, which could produce approximately 20 million gallons per day of drinking water. Next slide. I think that most people, especially water managers, would not disagree with the fact that ocean water desalination does have the potential to reduce our dependence on less reliable imported water from hundreds of miles away. It does create a drought-proof, locally controlled water supply, and it is a regulated source of drinking water for our communities. Secondly, and I think it should be emphasized, the governor in the production of the California Water Action Plan did call for an increased regional self-reliance and investment in new technologies, which include desalination. Next slide. And next slide. With this in mind, I would never want to discuss ocean water desalination in West Basin Municipal Water District without a thorough summary of the contributions, not only to West Basin's research related to ocean water desalination, but of course through the state of California, internationally, and of course the industry. When you talk about West Basin, we played a pivotal role in extending the understanding of ocean water desalination as a potential water supply for Southern California. West Basin's extensive research helped inform and shape environmental regulations and guidelines, as have water jurisdictions and the environmental community. And West Basin research work has incentivized the local economy with the construction of both the pilot project as well as the demonstration facility. Next slide. The work performed by West Basin Municipal Water District is award-winning. We did receive the Water Reuse Project of the Year for West Basin's demonstration facility in the city of Redondo Beach at the C-Lab facility. We also received the Cal Desal Visionary Environmental Leadership in Desalination Award. And you'll hear this throughout this presentation, but the stepwise approach to looking at and evaluating ocean water desalination has not only been supported within our communities, but I think that people look at the stepwise approach and looking at every aspect of it as providing maximum opportunity for public comment and public participation in West Basin's research on ocean water desalination. Next slide. These next two slides provide specific opportunities for West Basin to learn as we conducted each of our projects. The pilot project provided over 500 water quality tests per month. Data was utilized in other research projects throughout the state and internationally. We had 7 years of pilot data that contributed to greater understanding of treatment processes for ocean water. Our demonstration facility conducted over 15 analysis and research quality of product water and brine and marine protection studies and provided guidance for the industry to follow. We certified the processes at full-scale level, and we offered unique educational opportunities through the C-Lab, where we provided tours and water education to thousands of people each year. Next slide. Lastly, the environmental assessment process conducted additional evaluations and R&D studies that up to date are referenced in external R&D studies. Some of the studies provided guidance manuals for other desalination components to follow, and we engaged the community throughout this process. And I really want to stress that, because we didn't just move through this process without engaging the public. Often we would extend the comment period to make sure that we maximize public participation, and we reach out to the stakeholders to make sure that they have those opportunities. Next slide. So this slide, I know it's difficult to read, but I always like to have it here because it showcases the over 30 studies that have been prepared to date, addressing a range of technological, environmental, and economic concerns. West Basin's thorough analysis has included extensive pilot testing, followed by demonstrations of full-scale processes, and supplemented with numerous technical studies and a program master plan. Each study prepared by West Basin was built off the conclusions from previous studies to ensure a thorough understanding and accurate analysis of a potential ocean water desalination project. Next slide. And again, top research that has been contributed to or advanced the water desalination industry. This is just a small list of our partnerships and the work that we've done. You can see throughout, working with Metropolitan Water District, Water Reuse, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. We have been a partner in this. We have worked with others, and we've showcased West Basin's abilities to look at this objectively and as a potential source of new drinking water. Next slide. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to our Executive Manager of Engineering and Operations, Walter Messerlian, for the next several slides.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, board members and members of the public. So over the next slides, I'll talk a little bit about the EIR certification, Environmental Impact Report certification, as well as some of the recent studies that we've conducted post the adoption of the EIR. On the next slide, you've seen this slide before, as you will see. We started the EIR process in 2015, and the process spanned over 4 years. Like EJ mentioned, we emphasized public participation in the process. The draft environmental impact report was published in March 27, 2018, and the district received responses from multiple agencies, responses and comments and questions, to which we, the district, attempted to respond to all the comments, and with its publication of the final EIR. That was presented to the board in late 2019, where it was ultimately adopted and approved with conditions, and a notice of determination was filed in November 21st, 2019. And so on the next slide, you will see what those conditions, or basically the direction that the board provided to West Basin staff. The board asked us to look into the permitting process a little bit deeper, develop updated cost estimates, conduct a little bit of financial evaluation of the project and the district's financial condition, and complete a cost benefit analysis, define the cost of the projects, whether they be in the actual dollar amount cost or the energy that it would consume, or the impacts, the environmental impacts, and weigh that against the benefits of the project, the resiliency, the water resiliency that a local supply, an ocean water local supply would provide. And then also the board asked us to do a little bit of extra engineering work, take a look at the site itself, and determine what are the preliminary constraints of the site itself. And we're happy to report, and we reported this back in August, that we've taken a stepwise approach towards all of these. And in August, we came back to the board and reported on conditions 2, 3, and 4 that you see before you with the cost benefit analysis report that's available on our website. I'm going to talk a little bit about that report. Again, we conducted a workshop as on the next slide. That is the cost benefit analysis. We completed that earlier this year and conducted a workshop where we also received some comments on that. And again, a copy of that report is available on the district's website. But so you've seen a lot of the language that we're going to be presenting in this next few slides, but we're going to try to give you a little bit of an overview. So on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the assumptions. The assumptions for the cost benefit analysis, again, it was just a look at a 20 million gallon per day desalination plant. We had estimated that the cost of the desal plant could be anywhere between $500 million to $750 million. We also looked at all the other types of costs that are associated with the operation and maintenance, the GHG, the rehab and the repair of the facilities over a 30-year period. So because the cost benefit analysis is a planning document, it is a look into the future. Obviously, we have to make our best assumptions into what goes into that cost analysis. So some of the assumptions here, you can see from the slide, the cost was based on 2019 because that was where the majority of the analysis was done. We looked at what the permitting requirements could be. As part of the cost benefit analysis, we looked at what preferred technologies are out there that would cost a little bit more, and then the current design of the project, which is using the intake tunnels. We had to prepare a cash flow model to look at what the revenues coming in would be and what would the cost going out would be to see what the financial condition of the district would be. And then we had to compare the cost of the desal project to the Metropolitan's imported water rates. And we had to make the assumptions on the imported water rates themselves. So we can see here that there were certain assumptions made on that, 3.5% increase over a certain number of years. And we also had to make an assumption of what costs are included when a comparison to done an apples to apples comparison is done between Met imported rate and an ocean desal rate from West Basin. On the next slide, again, some more assumptions. A few to note here is more assumptions in sales moving forward, and there's going to be a little bit more discussion on that in the next few slides. But we had to make some assumption of what imported sales would be, what the demand of the region would be. We also had to look at, when evaluating the financial condition of the district, what would it take for the district to maintain a healthy amount of reserves in its coffers to maintain a good recycled water program, rehab and replace the facilities on our recycled water program as necessary. So quite a significant amount of assumptions that went into the next slide. You'll see the cost estimate. This is the best case scenario if we were to proceed with the current design of the project using the intake tunnels. We're talking about $514 million. That's in 2019 dollars. We look at the permitting cost, $5.5 million, and the operation and maintenance of the facility itself, approximately $20 million a year moving forward. We also looked at, so that is based, I mentioned that's the best case scenario with the current project design, and that's also assuming a certain delivery method for the project, a certain way we would construct the facilities and operate them. And it's a way where the cost is lower, but the risk is higher onto the district. We evaluated other alternatives where the risk is transferred to another party, but we would end up paying more to construct the facility itself. And with that, the cost of desal would go up. The cost of desalinated water in this case, where it's the lowest of it is $2,629 per acre foot. If we were to take the higher end of that, that jumps up to 4,768. So there was an inner bound and an upper bound in the analysis that we performed as part of the cost analysis. So what would happen then on the next slide, you will see you would have a cost of desal water, but you would have also imported water coming into West Basin service area. So if the cost of desal and the cost of imported water were to be blended before it goes to the retail water agencies, this slide kind of shows how that cost, that blended water cost would look like. It would look about $1,700, a little over $1,700 per acre foot, compared to imported water by itself, which is $1,500. So that's a 15% increase, if you want to call that a desal premium, to the desal / imported water mix. Again, that's assuming the best case scenario of $500 million for the facility itself and the delivery methods. If that was to increase, that desal premium of 15% would be more towards 32%. On the next slide, the cost benefit analysis also looked at affordability. What would the impact be on the bills for the different retail agencies that we would have? Here are some of the impact that, again, that's based on the best case scenario. But what we also did is not only look at the bills, but how those bills affect the different communities. So we dived into the affordability and looked at a couple of models of how affordability can be defined, establish some sort of a threshold, and see if the desal project would go beyond that threshold. And we determined in this cost benefit analysis that for most agencies it won't go above the threshold. In only a few agencies it did go above the threshold, the affordability threshold that was established. Next slide. Ultimately, the report that was prepared looked into the cost and the benefits of the project as a whole and provided that to the board for its decision-making process. So again, with the cost versus the benefit, we looked at the cost of the water itself, the desalinated water, the affordability, the risk transfer, the environmental and amenity impacts, organizational impacts, water quality, economical stimulus, and water security. And ultimately, the goal of the study itself was to say, here are the benefits and are the costs related to the projects, whether that be dollar-wise, whether it be the environmental, brine discharge costs or energy consumption. How do those weigh against the benefits? With that, I'm going to turn it to Matt V for the next few slides.
Walter, thank you very much. I'll take it from here.
Okay.
If we could change to the next slide. The next slide again. In evaluating the ocean water desalination facility at any time, you really need to look at the current state and regional water conditions and then analyze that against your demand portfolio and supply portfolio. As you can see here, we are in a second consecutive year of severe drought with historically dry conditions. The State Water Project 2021 final allocation was 5%, and it's projected to be 0% in 2022. The Colorado River Basin is under the first ever shortage declaration, though it does not impact California at this time. It could potentially impact California in future years. Next slide. This slide depicts a comprehensive look at all the things that have happened, not just since West Basin Municipal Water District pursued ocean water desalination, but all of the things that happened in the time since. And I apologize because as we have it here, it's in a PDF format, so it kind of provides all of the different boxes all at once, but I will walk you through that. You can see at the very far left-hand side of this chart, that is our year 2000 total retail demand. That includes our imported water sales, the use of groundwater, so groundwater pumped from the West Coast Basin, and all of our purple pipe minus any water that's placed in the barrier. You can see that in 2000, when we began looking at ocean water desalination, the total retail demand was 191,346 acre feet. Since that time, as West Basin began the process of evaluating ocean water desalination, several key policy decisions, not only locally, but also state and federally, have come to pass and of course impact water demand. You can see on the far left-hand side in that green box, the Water Recycling Act of 1991. So with the arrow pointing prior to that, it actually does state California recycled water goals, urging its water agencies to pursue the use of recycled water. We were then hit with the 2008-2011 recession, which obviously impacts water demand. We had the 2007 and 2009 drought, and that led to one of what I would call the first water use efficiency mandates and requirements adopted by the state of California. You can see the first at the top, the first box on the left-hand side is the passage of SB 7X7. That required each water retailer and wholesaler to reduce its total demand by 20%. West Basin was very active in that process and engaged all of our delegation and worked with members of the California State Legislature to make sure that our communities were protected and that we could achieve our goals even though they were difficult goals. I'm very pleased to announce that we did achieve those goals under 7X7 with the 20% reduction. The next item to the right of that is the passage of Senate Bill 918 by Senator Pavley. This was one of the first potable reuse bills that was passed by the California State Legislature, really making the way for what would ultimately become the potential for direct potable reuse. Again, West Basin Municipal Water District, through its partnership with California Water Reuse, we led this effort. It was passed by one of West Basin's delegation members, and that bill did pass and is now in effect. You can see the third box, again to the top, the passage of AB 1668 and Senate Bill 606. These bills were just passed in 2018 and again require all water retailers to meet water use efficiency targets. Though the bill was passed in 2018, it actually sets up a process for developing the water use efficiency target model, and those requirements will be in place by 2022 and then enforced in 2023. So though these bills have moved forward through the legislature and have been enacted and signed by the governor, they have not actually been able to take effect as of yet. And then if you can look at below that, there is the passage of AB 574. Again, this bill was passed in 2017. This bill originated here at West Basin Municipal Water District and called on the State Water Resources Control Board to adopt uniform water recycling criteria for raw water augmentation, the first step in the direct potable reuse process. And last but not least, you can see that the COVID-19 pandemic has had an impact on our total water demand, but it leaves us to our current status, which is in 2021, where we have 327,000 acre feet of total retail demand in the West Basin service area. That's a 50,000 acre foot reduction since our beginning work at ocean water desalination. Next slide. So as we begin to look at our projections of where we'll be, what we tried to do is take an honest look at our water portfolio in the year 2025. And to use this as a comparison, we took the information provided to us in our 2015 Urban Water Management Plan and compared that to our 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. And again, to clarify, this is our projected demand in 2025. You can see back in 2015 in the Urban Water Management Plan, we incorporated ocean water desalination up to the site left-hand side of that pie chart, where we included roughly 22,500 acre feet of ocean water desalination in our total portfolio. This combined with imported water, our groundwater usage, and our recycled water totaled 163,582 acre feet. It's important to note that as we transition over to the 2020 side, this is our Urban Water Management Plan as it stands, and a look at our 2025 projections. And the first thing that really stands out is the groundwater pumping usage. And I'll talk a little bit about this in a minute, but we are now projecting an increase in groundwater pumping in 2025, but only to the level of 25,330 acre feet. So when I take a look at this, I would like the board to note that ocean water desalination has been removed from our 2020 urban water management plan. And again, we'll talk about that plan in just a few minutes. And we are projecting an increase from our current groundwater production, but still less than we projected back in 2015. And we have an overall projected use of 151,520, which is actually an increase from our current demand. We are projecting a slight growth. Next slide. So this takes into account something that West Basin Municipal Water District has long included, and it incorporates conservation into our projections. And again, when we looked at our 2025 projections, we felt like we'd be conserving roughly 35,190 acre feet by the year 2025. And we, utilizing a model provided by Metropolitan Water District as well as our consultants, we think that we would increase just through natural active and passive conservation. We do believe that that will increase to roughly 38,229 acre feet. Next slide. Now, West Basin Municipal Water District provides a vital service to the communities that we serve. We are a member of Metropolitan Water District. We are the wholesaler for imported water to our region. We also invest in water use efficiency as well as the use of recycled water. But one thing that we have available to the region is the use of groundwater. And it's important to note that back in 2000, when West Basin began its process of looking at ocean water desalination, we were pumping, or our retail pumpers were pumping roughly 50,349 acre feet of total groundwater usage. If you follow along that line, you can see that there's been a gradual and at some points a steep decrease in total groundwater usage. There in 2014, you can see the amendment to the West Coast Basin and Central Basin groundwater adjudication. That was a long fought over discussion about how to manage the groundwater basin, but ultimately opened the door for possible storage as well as groundwater augmentation to make the groundwater basin 100% sustainable if we utilize recycled water. You can see there that our total 2019-2020 data, West Basin Municipal Water District and our retailers in the West Coast groundwater basin are actually near an all-time low of 19,776 acre feet. That is roughly 30,000 acre feet, or slightly more than 30,000 acre feet, less than we were pumping back in 2000. You can see the red dotted line at the top. That's the unrealized groundwater pumping rights as the adjudication calls for. And just to enlighten you, that number, the amount of water that our service area has the right to pump exceeds 50,000 acre feet. Next slide. So as we look at this policy matter, policy decision, ultimately we have to look at how we want to supply our portfolio, how we want to expand, and how we want to meet our total demand reduction in the future. You can see obviously the construction of ocean water desalination does provide West Basin Municipal Water District a supply enhancement. It would impact the use of imported water. We could also assist in the expansion of retail and replenishment, recycled water supplies. That would be through a partnership, obviously, with entities within the West Basin service area, as well as the Water Replenishment District of Southern California. We could increase groundwater pumping in the West Coast groundwater basin. And I really want to hammer this home. I want to make this a very clear statement. In order to do this, we would need to call upon the retailers, the groundwater pumpers within the West Coast Basin. West Basin Municipal Water District does not hold groundwater pumping rights. We would need to work with each of our individual retailers. And I want to note this as well. In the development of the Urban Water Management Plan, this was a key aspect of every conversation we had with each of our retailers. And the message was loud and clear that they intend to do so over time. They intend to increase groundwater pumping. And lastly, we need to implement new and expanded water efficiency outreach and education programs. This will be done by West Basin Municipal Water District, but also through state initiatives, as we saw in AB 1668 and SB 606. Next slide. So there are several other factors that West Basin would like to provide to the Board of Directors today. We are winding down this presentation, but I think these next couple slides highlight a lot of great work that's been conducted by the West Basin staff over the last couple of years. Next slide. I mentioned this in our water supply portfolio. West Basin did conduct a report to the board for adoption, its 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. Again, this is a look at future growth opportunities for West Basin Municipal Water District as far as our total demand. The Urban Water Management Plan projects service area demand to increase roughly 10,000 acre-feet by 2025. We think that this is highly conservative because there is a drought going on. We do expect continued decrease in total demand, but again, we wanted to make sure that we noted that. We then expect remaining flat for the next 20 years. Actually, an increase would be less due to drought-caused demand reductions. Secondly, the service area total demand, groundwater plus retail MWD imported, is expected to decrease slightly through 2025 and then remain flat for the next 20 years. And I want to point this out, that in the development of West Basin's Urban Water Management Plan, it really does require a lot of coordination, not just with the retail agencies within the West Basin service area, but also the Water Replenishment District and also Metropolitan Water District. Metropolitan Water District has to evaluate the needs and demand analysis of each of its member agencies. And while they do expect its member agencies to provide projections of their demand, they obviously have their own models and they do look very closely at that. And in 2025, they're projecting West Basin's total demand on Metropolitan Water District to actually decrease by roughly 10,000 acre-feet to a total of 95,879. And then over the course of the next 20 years, possibly get as low as 90,523. And that's a decrease of roughly 15,000 acre-feet over that 25 years, if you look at the Metropolitan Water District projections. Next slide. So I know the board is fairly familiar with this. West Basin staff also conducted a recent recycled water master plan where we evaluated all of our current demands and usage of recycled water and tried to find new opportunities to maximize the use of recycled water in the area with a goal of roughly 70,000 acre-feet. This plan evaluated three alternative paths. You can see that we looked at tier 1 and tier 2 markets, trying to find anybody that resides or could use recycled water along our existing paths. We looked at the expansion of the barrier system. We looked at our refineries to see if they could increase the use of recycled water. We looked at groundwater augmentation, and of course we looked at the LA Harbor, Long Beach industrial usage. Next slide. And as I mentioned, we identified three potential paths. At the first, you can see at the very top on the left-hand side, the West Coast Basin groundwater augmentation scenario. This would take us through a phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4 approach, gradually building up the use of recycled water for groundwater augmentation up to potentially 70 million gallons per day. The next option includes the LA Harbor and Long Beach area. Again, this would be a separate option, but again, would be an option to build out and construct a couple of different phases and ultimately, in the future, get to roughly 68 million gallons per day. And lastly, a look at just the West Basin service area and just an expansion of our system. And you can see there we would have a roughly 65 million gallons per day through a 4-phase approach. Next slide. And this ultimately brings us to our next step. This concludes the content of the presentation and brings us to the potential action. Next slide. The staff's recommendation ultimately is that the board pursue one of the following options. Option 1 would be to direct staff to take appropriate steps to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply options. Or option number 2, to proceed with the implementation of an ocean water desalination project. And with that, Mr. President, that concludes our presentation as directed to the public comments at the initial phase of this meeting. If the board had any initial comments or questions, West Basin staff would be available to answer those. After the conclusion of that portion, we would then go to the public comment to receive those, and then of course come back for deliberation by the board of directors.
Okay. Well, thank you for that very thorough report. And I will now open up to our board members for their comments.
Did you have public comment first, coming?
Yeah. We'll have public comment after.
It's at your discretion.
After we have the comments from the board.
May I say something?
Yes.
I'm puzzled that the recommendation can be a yes or no. It should be one or the other as a recommendation. Obviously, we're going to vote yes or no. Can the manager clarify that?
Yes, if you read through the board agenda, there is an option, a very specific recommendation. And then, of course, if you see below the actions, that would be the options 1 or 2. So just to clarify, no, the arrow pointing no would be to not proceed. And of course, yes would be the option number 2, which is to proceed with an implementation of an ocean water desalination project. So I apologize for any confusion. This is just a graphic, but the content below it are the 2 options.
What is your staff's recommendation?
Clearly, this is a policy decision. Staff has provided a detailed overview of our total demand. When you look at meeting that demand through supply, it really is a question of policy. How you wish to conquer the mission of West Basin Municipal Water District, which is to provide a safe and reliable supply of high-quality water. So this presentation offers several different options, including increasing the use of water use efficiency, water recycling, and of course, groundwater. And so we tried to show you the trends there, but ultimately this is a policy decision for the board.
May I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
I'm going to be a minority voter today, I think, but I'm going to move that we do recommendation 2, proceed with the implementation of the OWDP. That's my motion.
That's your motion?
I'd like to discuss it if I get a second.
Well, it's called first. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
No, it's been seconded by Director Gray. Okay, comments?
May I? I'll be very brief.
Yes.
In the water industry, boards have had a lot of foresight. The Metropolitan Board in the 1920s, we thank them for the Colorado River Aqueduct. The West Basin Board in the 1990s, we thank them for the Edgewater Recycling Plant in El Segundo.
You can't hear him? Who's closer to the mic, please?
You want me to repeat myself? Yeah, you don't need me to. You don't need me to repeat myself. I don't mind repeating myself. Okay, is that better? Is that better? All right, I'll be very brief. We got, one of the letters we got in favor of the project is from a Grace Payne, a doctor who is a Dr. Payne, who is a scientist and longtime resident of Redondo Beach. Briefly, in her discussion, she talks about climate change and earthquake risk as being 2 of the major reasons for backing this project. And I agree with her comment. Please reduce our climate and the seismic risk. I won't go into the details because I think the board is aware of the details on those subjects. And that's my comment. Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment. Question. Can you hear me? Thank you. The general manager, while staff gave a presentation on water demand and certainly addressed some of the issues that we're faced with now with the drought in the zero allocation on the state water projects, the low level of Colorado River. And I say all this to say that, you know, there are, the fact that we have to look at alternatives to make sure we do have water supply. And the only thing that we can control is really local supplies. And Ocean Desal is certainly a source for that particular issue, if you will, in terms of local supplies. Director Deere mentioned that water projects. Can you hear me?
I apologize, but it's somewhat difficult to hear you inside the room. If you could speak, we'll turn up the volume in here.
Okay, I started out by saying that you and staff had given a very thorough presentation that has to do with water supply. And of course, currently we're faced with the 0% allocation on state water projects, low levels on the Colorado River that's never been seen before. And obviously we're in a drought. We don't know what climate control or climate actions will do in the future. And Director Deere mentioned about directors making futuristic decisions, and at the time those decisions were not very popular with certain folks who didn't support them. And there are folks who do support looking at Ocean Desal. I think that's an option we should consider. I think we certainly should continue with our water recycling program that's very important in West Basin. That's our hallmark water supply, if you will, and other areas that we can look at in terms of making sure we have control over our local supply. Our mission is water reliability, but of course we have to be concerned with the environment. And I think that staff has done a very responsible job in terms of looking at Ocean Desal. The EIR, I think, was thoughtful. It revealed some things that may not speak to doing it right now, but I think we should leave that option open. We've invested a lot of money in science and technology when we've looked at the subject. So I think for me, it's important to leave that option open. That's why we'll be supporting the motion on the floor to continue looking at it. Thank you.
President Williams, if I may, can I be heard now? What I would appreciate is hearing from the members of the public. I thought we were going to have the presentation, have comments from the public, and then we were going to open it up for more discussion. Didn't quite go that way, but I would appreciate listening from members of the public.
What's that?
Whoever's making comments, he wants to hear the public.
Okay, we can do that. Okay. So okay.
I apologize, Director Houston. Director Alvarez just mentioned that he hoped to hear from the public prior to the deliberation of any action. This portion was more geared towards if you had any questions related to the presentation or general comments. It's at the discretion of the chair as to when we move to public comment. We're queuing those up. We have a complete list of everybody that's requested to speak under public comment under this item.
May I speak?
Go ahead.
I also would have preferred that was the order we were going to take, was to hear the public first. So is that what you'd like to do, Mr. Chair, is to hear the public first before we take a vote? Or I'm ready to make a substitute motion.
I thought we were going to hear the report,
which we did,
and we did, and then deliberate on it.
Actually, the staff was prepared to answer any of your immediate questions, and then of course hear public comment, and then come back for your deliberation. That way you have some of your questions answered. You get to hear the public, and then you would deliberate. But again, it's at the discretion of the board president.
Well, since we're all in this together,
Would you rather withdraw the motion?
It's up to you.
Would you rather withdraw the motion at this time so that we can hear the public?
We know what your motion is. So if we want to stop now and hear from the public, then we can do that if that's what you'd rather do. It doesn't matter to me.
That would be appropriate,
okay.
Mr. President.
All right, then we'll do that.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. President. as I mentioned, we have had staff acquiring a queue, a name of members of the public that would like to speak, some of which are here virtually, and of course, some of which are here in person. We will have Julie Fraser-Matthews, our Manager of Administration, begin to run through that queue. When you hear your name, please either turn on your microphone and your camera if you wish. Please state your name, and of course, begin speaking. We'll begin a timer for 3 minutes. That includes members of the public. We'll assist you as far as getting up there. We do have a camera set up, and we also have a microphone set up for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's family first. But just a moment, how many people do we have queued up?
We have a total of 25.
25.
Virtually and in-house, and then we also have some that we've received that would like to be read into the record.
Times 3 minutes.
Correct.
Times 10%. Go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. My name is Wendy Phillips, and I'm a resident of Manhattan Beach. I support option number 1 to terminate the desal project, and I have several reasons. First of all, the environmental impacts, and what I'm concerned has been an inadequate and faulty evaluation. I've outlined all this in my comment letter back in June of 2018, and I've reiterated these comments at a prior board meeting or workshop. Second, the costs. As I've pointed out before, the costs have had a tendency, an alarming tendency to increase since you issued the EIR. And there's also the issue of what is the true cost once you strip out the public subsidies, like the SRF, the State Revolving Fund. Okay, third, there is potential for improved conservation, controlling demand, and also improved efficiencies. I think that the district could take a much more focused leadership role and push the retail agencies, our businesses, our institutions, and our residents. Send better price signals through your rate structure, more outreach to market opportunities for improved efficiencies. Now, all of this, such programs could be done and could produce significant amounts of water at a much lower cost than the desal project. I also want to say I find staff's comments on the potential for improved groundwater management and expanded recycling water programs to be very exciting. And I would hope that you would pursue these as a preferred alternative. And I'm just going to close with a gripe. I only found out about this meeting a few days ago, and I've been actively participating as a member of the public. So I'm disappointed that staff did not reach out to me. As a former employee at a state agency, that's the Regional Water Quality Control Board, I can say it was our norm to identify the interested parties and actively reach out to them so that they were engaged during important meetings such as this. Thank you.
Interesting. Next.
Thank you, President Williams. The next speaker in the queue is Kelly Clark, and I believe that we're going to be able to have a timer pop up on the screen for all the virtual members of the public that will be speaking. So at this time, Kelly Clark, you're up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, President Williams and board members. First, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about whether to terminate the ocean water desalination project. My name is Kelly Clark, and I am here speaking on behalf of LA Waterkeeper. Bruce is on vacation, but he sends his regrets at not being able to join for this hearing. However, he would like me to convey his wishes that you all have a happy holiday season. We understand the work that West Basin has put into studying potential water supply options to ensure a robust portfolio. and we appreciate the willingness of the board to continually assess what the appropriate path forward entails. We also agree that the time has come to make a decision, even though difficult, to refocus West Basin's efforts on maintaining its leadership in promoting sustainable and equitable water supplies. West Basin has a long history of leading the charge towards sustainable water in Los Angeles. Its revolutionary recycled water program has been a model for decades. Its efforts at conservation throughout the recent and current droughts have shown just how much influence it can have in the fight to ensure everyone's water needs are met. And what West Basin's thorough research has shown is that there is still room for more here. By refocusing its efforts on these and other sustainable water sources, as opposed to the costly and environmentally harmful sources like desal, we believe West Basin can again be a driving force to achieve sustainability. We understand the need to have investigated desal, but given its cost, both monetarily to those already struggling and to the marine environment and the climate, it is time to terminate the project. Desal should only be an option of last resort, and through careful planning and management and visionary leadership, West Basin has demonstrated that it can meet the needs of its customers without desal. This is commendable and evidence of the exceptional progress West Basin can make in meeting water needs in a sustainable way if it refocuses its efforts away from desal. Finally, we know the path forward will have its own challenges, but I am here on behalf of LA Waterkeeper to pledge our allyship in pursuing sustainable, equitable, and environmentally friendly water supplies that focus on reducing, reusing, recycling, and restoring our water sources. We are here to help and to support West Basin in this endeavor however we can, and we are asking you to vote to terminate the Ocean Water Desal project today. Thank you for your time and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Annalisa Moe.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak this afternoon. For the record, my name is Annalisa Moe, and I am here to speak on this item 8A regarding the status and progress report of the Ocean Water Desalination Project. I am speaking today on behalf of Heal the Bay, an environmental nonprofit based in Santa Monica with over 35 years of work dedicated to making the coastal and inland waters of Los Angeles safe, healthy, and clean. And I'm asking you to vote in favor of option 1 to terminate the Ocean Water Desalination Project and pursue alternative water supply options. We understand that West Basin needed to investigate the possibility of ocean water desalination as a possible source of water supply as Los Angeles faces longer and more severe droughts. We appreciate the work put into study the effects of desalination in the EIR process. However, things have changed significantly since West Basin initially investigated desalination as a supplemental source of water supply. We know that desalination will contribute significantly to energy demands and negatively impact our coastal ecosystems, both of which are already under stress as a result of the climate crisis. We also know through studies conducted by West Basin that water supply demands can be met through increasing our efforts related to recycling, groundwater replenishment, and conservation. Ocean water desalination no longer makes sense, and now is the time to stop the project and shift investments to more sustainable water supplies. I'd also like to bring up the idea that I know has been brought up at previous meetings, this idea that, you know, why not do all of the above? And my response to that is do all of the above that makes sense, given limited resources. And at this time, ocean desalination just does not make sense. You all have the opportunity today to position West Basin as a leader in smart, local, sustainable water practices. And in doing so, can also prioritize your customers' fundamental human right to safe, affordable water without discrimination. For these reasons, I am asking each of you to terminate the Ocean Water Desalination Project and instead pursue more cost-effective and environmentally protective alternative water supply options. I applaud West Basin for considering this action here today and urge you to vote in favor of option 1. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide comments on this critical issue, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
The next speaker will be an in-house speaker, Charming Evelyn. And I'll start the clock here virtually.
Good afternoon, board members. It's nice to be in front of everyone again and standing at the podium. One of the first things I'd like to say is actually I was awarded an award by Sierra Club California for my almost 20 years in water. And I really do want to thank the members of this board and the staff of West Basin for being part of that journey with me. One of you are the board members here I have spoken with, you guys know me, and lots of other members of the staff, EJ, Amy, and I do thank you for bringing me on that journey. What I would like to say is that we would like you, obviously, to vote for option 1 and terminate this project. And I speak on behalf of Sierra Club today as the chair of the Water Committee. And to you, Director Deere, you always tell me you're a Sierra Club member. I ask you to use that Sierra Club vote today.
I haven't renewed my membership. In fact, I was attacked verbally by members of the Sierra.
Well, you need to renew that membership. And, you know, Director Gray spoke about climate change, reliability, sustainability, but she did not mention cost. There was a newspaper article that came out today, and it said San Diego, people of San Diego owe over $73 million in water costs because of the rising water cost. So when you think about this project, think about the people who may not be able to afford desalinated water. And that's what's happening in San Diego right now. Farmers are cutting back on how much they grow. They're cutting back on their farms. The staff did a wonderful job with the cost-benefit analysis. And I ask you as the board members to take this seriously. We have a situation on our hands with COVID and with people who can barely afford to pay their water bills. These are people who are getting liens on their homes because they can't afford to pay their water bills and they may lose their homes. Take that into consideration. I'd also like you to take into consideration the fact that we have supported the water recycling facility here. We support direct potable reuse, and we worked with West Basin on the inside in Sacramento to help pass those same bills that were mentioned there today. We will continue to be an ally with conservation, groundwater management, and your recycled water program. You can count on us to be in your corner if that is what you seek to pursue. You have my number, you know how to reach out to me. And Sierra Club will support you if you go the route of conservation, groundwater management, groundwater replenishment, and expanding your recycled water project. Please vote no on the ocean water desalination project. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. The next person in the queue did speak earlier. I don't see them still on the meeting, but I'd like to call out the name Alejandro Sabrera. Are you with us? Not hearing you speak. If you are here, if you could put a note in the chat box and I can add you back to the queue. But not hearing from you, I'm going to move to the next speaker, which is Elizabeth Haas. Elizabeth?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth House and I work for the city of Redondo Beach. Our mayor, Bill Brand, really wanted to be here to speak on this item today, but unfortunately he is unable to join us. So on his behalf, I will go ahead and read his letter into the record. To the Board of Directors, as an indirect customer of the West Basin Municipal Water District since 1966, and as mayor of Redondo Beach, I respectfully ask you to vote for terminating your ocean water desalination project. The city of Redondo Beach voted to oppose this project in 2019, and we remain opposed. But there are many more important reasons explained in the staff report prepared for your December 22nd meeting to oppose any further effort toward a desalination project. 3 major challenges to completing a desalination project that were not mentioned are: 1, identifying a physical tie-in location to the drinking water distribution system operated by Metropolitan Water District, or how difficult it will be to overcome the engineering and construction challenges to accomplish this. 2, no mention of how difficult it will be to attain financing for such a large project. And 3, the long, time-consuming, and expensive process to attain approval by the California Coastal Commission for a coastal development permit. There are many complex, time-consuming, and expensive steps to complete before an actual project can be considered. The time and effort placed towards completion of this project is much better spent on the areas identified in your recently completed Urban Water Management Plan. This plan explains a clear path to securing our water future going forward, and ocean water desalination is not part of it. Page 8 of your staff's report for today's meeting lists the various reasons why ocean water desalination is not part of your 25-year plan. West Basin Municipal Water District has a long and very commendable record of water reliability programs like water recycling, groundwater recharge, conservation and efficiency, purple pipe installations, and a myriad of other opportunities to pursue as detailed in your urban water management plan. Please vote to terminate your desalination program and pursue the programs and projects listed in your 25-year urban water management plan. Sincerely, Bill Brand. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mandy Sackett. Mandy?
Hi, my name is Mandy Sackett. I'm speaking on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation's global headquarters. I'm here to speak on behalf of our thousands of members and supporters regarding the Ocean Desalination Project. Surfrider's South Bay chapter has been involved and commenting on this project for over 15 years. Surfrider strongly supports option 1 to terminate the project and pursue alternative water supply options. We applaud West Basin for taking this smart and much needed action, and we're excited to see the district move towards smarter water supply options. Ocean desalination would be the most expensive and environmentally harmful way to enhance local water supplies, and it must be used only as an option of last resort. And as staff has clearly described today, there are smarter options available to West Basin. By terminating the project, West Basin has the chance to continue its visionary leadership by refocusing on more sustainable supplies. And West Basin can lead on the path towards sustainability. It's clear from regional progress towards expanding recycled water capacity and conservation that this project no longer makes sense, and it's time to shift towards better options. By pursuing alternative sources of water instead of desal, West Basin will avoid enormous impacts to marine life, greenhouse gas emissions, and unaffordable rate increases. Another, another highly problematic component of the project would have been the location on the eroding coastline, perpetuating industrialization of the coast and reliance on shoreline armoring, which would exacerbate beach erosion in the area at a time when we should be moving away from the shoreline due to sea level rise and climate change related coastal hazards. West Basin has the opportunity here to set a bold course for the future of water management in Los Angeles. For these reasons, I ask you to vote to terminate the project today and instead pursue alternative water supply options. Thank you for your time. Happy holidays and New Year to everyone.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Murphy. Michelle, you're up.
Sorry, I already spoke earlier, but I don't think I used up my whole 3 minutes. And besides, you weren't maybe counting. I just wanted to say a couple things. There's some sense I have that you've spent a lot of money on desal. It's not wasted money. That information that you gathered is a good thing, and we may need it in the future. We just don't need it now. It's clear. That's called, what's it called, Bob? Spent money or sunken costs. They don't throw good money after bad. And it's, yes, you should go forward with thinking about desal. You should not go forward with doing desal at the expense and cost of not having the time and money to do the other things that are needful and are better than desal. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dan Silver. Dan, you're up. Okay, I don't hear him, so we'll move on to Dr. Tom Williams.
Good afternoon again. Dr. Tom Williams. Hello? It's starting the timer? Okay. Basically, vote for number one. Number one is a good number, and it is a good project. So we need to have a better plan. It can still include reverse osmosis for fresher groundwater and reclamation of waters for the groundwater and for direct potable reuse. So there should be at least that amount. I noticed from your graphics that 50% of the water that you use is imported. Maybe we could cut that by 25% by having on-land recycled water using reverse osmosis. Oh, by the way, I do have some experience in reverse osmosis because I helped plan and build the first and only reverse osmosis facility on an island in the Arctic Ocean. We had the same problems, but we had no choices. So reverse osmosis is good, can be good, and was used by Water Factory 21 for a long time to help the groundwater. So we prefer to have everything going well with lower costs. And I say, if you go for number two, expect a judicial review of the last 20 years for costs versus benefits and equitable services. That is, how much does everyone have to pay for the improved benefits of water supply along the 1 mile from the coast? So please vote for number one, deny further reverse osmosis for seawater desalination. That's all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lydia Ponce, and you did speak earlier, so you have 1 minute and 4 seconds remaining on the clock. Lydia? Lydia, are you with us? We'll go to our next speaker, Andrea Leon Grossman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Leon Grossman, Climate Action Director of Azul, an environmental justice organization. Addressing item 8A regarding status and progress report on ocean water desalination project, I'm asking you to vote in favor of option 1, to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply solution. I also want to applaud and thank West Basin for considering this wise and necessary action. Firstly, I want to ensure we understand the issue at hand. California does not have a water shortage. We have a water management problem. As West Basin made it clear, conservation, efficiency, and recycling are the methods required to ensure a sustainable, reliable water supply for California. Desalination, on the other hand, recently deemed maladaptation by the United Nations, according to the latest IPCC report. Those are the scientists that said that this is highly huge, carbon intensive and pollutive, should only be considered as a last resort. Desalination also pollutes year-round by dumping millions of gallons of toxic brine and chemicals into surrounding environment. The incredibly high cost of desalination make it far less justifiable and viable than conservation, efficiency, and recycling. Recent West Basin studies have borne this out, including the 2030 Urban Water Management Plan that concluded that desalination would not be needed to satisfy our water needs, even in dry years. Worse still is incredibly high costs are passed off to taxpayer, ratepayers, and environmental justice communities that bear the worst of industrial pollution. In the middle of a climate emergency, we must prioritize actions that will yield the most benefit with the least downsides. Desalination is the most energy-intensive form to source water by far, and by far the most expensive. With many Californians still struggling to stay afloat in these difficult pandemic years, West Basin must continue to be very clear that it prioritizing replenishing, managing local water supplies through recycling and groundwater. West Basin has the opportunity to prioritize California's fundamental right to affordable and clean water supplies. West Basin also has the opportunity to continue to lead amongst its peer agencies in California by prioritizing reliable, sustainable, and especially equity in managing Los Angelinos water supplies. In sum, please continue the trend you have proudly set and vote to end ocean water desalination project to focus squarely on most sensible, sustainable methods of water management. The cost-benefit analysis we just saw is clearly all cost and no benefit in terms of water desalination. Again, thank you, and I wish you a happy holiday and a happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Grace Ping. Grace, you're up.
Hi, my name is Grace Peng. I am a scientist and I'm formerly a weather and climate data analyst at the Aerospace Corporation in El Segundo and also at the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder. I am urging the board today to stay the course and continue pursuing building the desalination plant in and for opening of 2028 or as soon thereafter as possible. The reasons that I support it is because I know that we cannot just go to the water store and buy imported river water just because it didn't rain locally or it's been very hot. Because we know that with climate change, the ground and the plants are just thirstier, and the Colorado River and the California Delta their water is horribly over allocated and will become even more so in the future. So, and in light of the recent Supreme Court decision, the Colorado River tribes are entitled to about a quarter of the Colorado River water that the cities and the farms have been using. So we cannot rely on imported river water in the future. We must develop local supplies. And I'm one of the Beach Cities people that has replaced all of my appliances and removed turf, but there's not much more for me to cut. And we are in the future, our trees that are going to keep us cool need more water. So we are reaching an end point in how much we can conserve. We don't have a whole lot of land in order to do groundwater recharge. And not only that, future storms are just going to be burstier and the water's going to come down too fast for us to capture as a high a percentage as we have in the future. So what I'm saying is that, and then if there's an earthquake, if we continue getting 0% allocations of imported river water, and then we have an earthquake that severs our aqueduct, and then we have to wait another year and a half until that aqueduct is repaired, we may hit day zero on water in this area if we don't develop more local supplies. So stay the course, continue doing conservation, water recycling, and groundwater harvest, stormwater harvest, but also pursue a small amount of desalination just in case for all of, so that we can leave the water in the rivers for the wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is April Halpern Wayland. April, are you on the line? Okay, not hearing a response. We'll move on to N. Okada. N. Okada. Not hearing. The next is Michael Ackerman. Michael. Okay, I see, Michael, you're still online. Do you still wish to speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please begin.
Great. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Michael Ackerman. West Basin has an opportunity right now to
I'm sorry.
determine the future. Can you hear me?
Yes, if you could speak a little bit louder, that would be great.
All right. West Basin has an opportunity right now to determine the future of water management. We're facing a climate emergency, and we cannot afford to invest in ocean water desalination, which is the most energy intensive and expensive water supply option. I ask that each of you vote option 1 and terminate the ocean water desal project and instead pursue alternative water supply options. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joseph Geaver. Joseph, you're up.
Thank you. My name is Joe Geaver. I'm retired now, but I used to work on water management issues for Surfrider Foundation. And in that role, I had the great pleasure of working with West Basin on crafting your landscape conservation program. And during that effort, I learned a lot from you guys about recycling wastewater. I got to tell you, West Basin has a lot to be proud of and a great story to tell. Climate change mandates make us rethink everything, not the least of it, water management. The great challenge is how we simultaneously mitigate our impacts on climate and adapt to inevitable changes. The present is our future, only on steroids. We've always had multi-year dry spells followed by 2 or 3 years of well above average precipitation. That pattern is just getting more exaggerated, and we've got to adapt to that new norm. So the list of required adaptation tactics is a long one, but the strategy is clear. We have to reduce embedded energy in water, and we have to adapt to both the already exaggerated dry periods and floods that are only going to get more exaggerated. Fortunately, you're well established to do both. Your landscape program can emphasize and incentivize designs to capture stormwater during the predictable flooding that's coming and return some of the natural basin recharge we lost in our urban designs. And recycling wastewater to potable standards can eliminate much of our reliance on imported water and eliminate some of the embedded energy in the system. But seawater desal is an enormously expensive investment that moves us in the wrong direction. The laws of physics limit how energy efficient RO can get, and it won't be less energy demanding than imported water. And if we ever hope to see our marine life return to the bounty that I remember as a young fisherman, we have to abandon surface intakes of ocean water like the fleet of coastal power plants is doing right now. I understand the attraction of desalting seawater and the notion of an endless supply of fresh water. Fantastic, right? But my father was an engineer, and he used to tell me, just because you can design a solution, almost anything, it doesn't mean you should. Climate change is mandating a new way of thinking about water management, and done right, we can realize multiple economic and environmental benefits. It's time to prioritize investments for the future, and you're uniquely positioned to highlight 2 tactics that fit into climate mitigation adaptation. Make us proud. Quit spending more time and money on seawater desal and get to work on solutions for the future. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Your time is up. The next speaker is Patricia McPherson. Patricia, you're up. Okay, I'm not hearing from her. The next one is an in-house speaker, Craig Cadwallader. If you'd go to the podium, please.
Good evening, or afternoon, board members and staff. My name is Craig Cadwallader, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation South Bay chapter. And coincidentally, this agency started looking at desalination in 2002. That happens to be the same year that I got very involved with the Surfrider Foundation. So it's been almost 2 decades that I've been doing what I can do to help protect the environment, and the agency has been exploring desalination. I was appointed by Supervisor Hahn to be on the South Santa Monica Bay Watershed Area Steering Committee, of which I currently serve as chair. And that's looking at stormwater capture and reuse. And I'm also on the Hyperion 2035 Technical Advisory Group, where the city of Los Angeles has plans to recycle 100% of the Hyperion treatment plant by the year 2035. In my opinion, if we are still discarding water to the bay or elsewhere, or not cleaning and reusing the water we already have, it is inappropriate to pursue a very expensive, very energy intensive project that is such a small portion of our water needs. It won't solve any problems for us. It's very expensive, and it distracts this agency from pursuing more immediate and more beneficial projects. As you know, I've been to many, many of these meetings. In fact, I've probably been to more board and committee meetings than any single board member, because not all of you go to all the meetings. I may miss 1 or 2, but I'm at most, because this is a very important agency, and I believe in what you do. I think you can do the right thing. I'm so proud of your leadership in wastewater recycling. I would like to see a stronger emphasis on that. You're a leader on that. And why not expand that and focus more on things we can do now with water that we have now, rather than spend all this time, money, and energy diverting to that. The 2020 Urban Water Management Plan showed clearly that you can serve your customer needs even under multiple dry years without desal. That's an important document. So I appreciate all the due diligence you've done, the hard work and research, but I think the time has come to use newer situations, put the desal on the back shelf, and focus on these more immediate needs that we have. I'm wearing my Ocean Wave shirt today to remind me of
Mr.
why I'm
Cadwallader,
active with the Surfrider Foundation, and
your time
please
is up.
vote to stop this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, we have 2 speakers left. Cynthia Lau, you're up next, and then following would be Andy Lipkus. Cynthia?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Lau, and I am here on behalf of the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water. I would like the board to vote in favor of option 1 to terminate the ocean water desalination project and to pursue alternate water supply option. West Basin has the opportunity to continue its legacy of being visionary leaders by refocusing its effort on sustainable water supplies like conservation and regarding. And according to a recent IPCC report, it called desalination a maladaptive process which will contribute more to climate change than to solve the impact of climate change. Well, mitigate. Additionally, the Environmental Justice Coalition, we have worked with disadvantaged communities for over 16 years, and we have helped them access clean, safe, and affordable drinking water. And I think West Basin really needs to, take consideration some of the environmental justice community that will be severely impacted by such a desalination process. We're facing a climate emergency, and we cannot afford to invest in ocean water desalination, which is the most energy intensive and expensive water supply option. With so many people struggling to pay their bills right now, it is critically important that West Basin prioritize more cost-effective local water supplies like recycling and groundwater. We are currently experiencing another cycle of drought. And West Basin's own studies have shown that it will still meet the need for water without having to rely on desal. I support West Basin's continuing investment in these more sustainable alternatives like recycling and conservation. And I also applaud West Basin's recognition in their 2030 urban water management plan that West Basins can meet its customers' water needs without desalinated ocean water, even in multiple drought years. For this reason, we ask each of you to vote to terminate the ocean water desalination process and instead pursue alternative water supply option. Please think about the impact that such an expensive project will have on our environmental justice communities. Thank you and have a happy holidays.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Lipkus, and then we do have a few other speakers that have come into the queue. So Andy, you're up.
Thank you. I'm speaking to you from the unceded land of the Tongva people, and I speak as the retired founder of Tree People. And to save time, I concur with the comments of my colleagues at Waterkeeper, Heal the Bay, Sierra Club, Azure, and many of the other experienced speakers in behalf of a yes vote for option 1 to terminate the ocean desal program now. I want to add one point that others have missed, and that's to tremendously expand local rainwater capture, because even in dry years, like the one we've just finished, it still rains 7.5 inches. That's half the water we normally get in rain. That could meet half of LA's water need. I've spent the last 30 years demonstrating the technical and financial feasibility of rainwater harvesting to significantly augment local supplies. This approach is an investment in human energy, jobs for people in our communities. I facilitated collaboration with local agencies, including LA Department of Water and Power, LA County Flood Control, LA Sanitation, who together built a very successful pilot project which met all their needs and included large-scale storage of water sufficient to capture and store the rain and prevent flooding and help address our water quality needs. All that stored water can be available in dry times for recharge and immediate use. This option must be developed as a first priority. Therefore, please prioritize developing these other options before desal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dency Nelson. Dency, you're up, followed by Rob Catherman. Dency, we cannot hear you. If you could unmute on your end. We still cannot hear you. You may want to log off and log back on because the audio is not on, and then we'll come back to you. The next speaker is Rob Catherman, followed by Susan Jordan. Rob, if you'd like to go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, President Williams and members of the board, nice to see you. And I just want to make a few comments. These are, as you know, I'm a board member of the Water Replenishment District, and my division covers basically from Westchester to Wilmington. But I'm here as a private citizen, not as a member of the board. First, I'd like to say, personally, I want to congratulate West Basin for your efforts over the past 20 years for setting an example for all of us for using recycled water and for conservation. I think you've done a wonderful job. But I think right now we're at a milestone point in our water supply history. We have at our agency adopted a 2040 plan, which will utilize the 300 million gallons a day of highly treated sewage that's being dumped in the ocean and wasted every day, and converting that through advanced treatment and groundwater injection to replenish our groundwater basins, not only here in the West and Central Basin, but also in San Gabriel and even as far east as Orange County. Locally, we're planning on cleaning up the brackish water in the West Basin that was created by seawater intrusion before the barriers were built. That will provide about 12,000 acre feet a year of potable water in 5 years. And that will clean up the basin so that the 25,000 acre feet of water under the adjudication that is not currently being pumped, that can be pumped. And ultimately, our future would be to utilize our entire groundwater basin, which would provide about 600,000 acre feet of storage for use by recycled water, and in the wet years to import water from Northern California. So with that, I think that you have a viable option to put ocean desal on the back burner. Just real quickly, I want to digress and just let everybody know that our esteemed Director Willard Murray passed away on Monday, and I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Willard, for many years, was the West Basin representative to Metropolitan Water District. So happy Christmas and Merry New Year's, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan Jordan. Susan, you're up.
Thank you. My name is Susan Jordan of the California Coastal Protection Network, and I request that you vote for option 1 to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply options. I've often found in my work that many water agencies start by selecting a predetermined outcome and then refuse to deviate from that decision, regardless of the information and evidence brought forward that an alternative course of action is preferable. So from my perspective, it's extremely refreshing to see an agency of your stature take the time and effort to go back and evaluate the steps it has taken and to reevaluate and revise that strategy based on factual evidence. By taking the step to terminate the desalination project, West Basin has the opportunity to again demonstrate its visionary leadership by refocusing its efforts on sustainable water supplies like conservation and recycling. And in doing so, West Basin can be a leader in California on the path towards a sustainable, climate-friendly, and establishing a reliable water supply. I support West Basin's continued investment in these more sustainable alternatives and applaud your recognition in the 2030 Urban Water Management Plan that West Basin can meet its customers' water needs without desalinated ocean water, even in multiple dry years. This step to terminate the ocean desalination project is one that the West Basin staff and board should take enormous pride in, and the many of us who have worked diligently to see other alternatives implemented before defaulting to seawater desalination are grateful that you have brought this forward today. So good luck. I hope the decision goes well and have a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Nancy Nelson, you have returned to the meeting. Let's see if your speakers are working now. Go ahead.
Okay, do you hear me now?
We do.
Oh, great. Well, logging back in, I guess, did it. It said I was unmuted, but thank you very much for that direction. Here I am, Nancy Nelson, 40-year homeowner and resident in Hermosa Beach. Most of you board members know me, and I know you. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to urge you to vote for option 1, direct staff to take appropriate steps to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply options, which you have many. My position is the same as it's been the many times I've spoken to you over the last 7, if not more years that this has been discussed. And I will echo what has been said by so many. You are the leaders in reclaiming and reusing the water that we have without taking this drastic step, this environmentally damaging step of desal. I am reinforced, though, at this point in time by reading from your own report. And if I may, I'll quote, major legislative changes in the areas of recycled water regulations and conservation standards that have worked together to produce significant investments in water use and water efficiency programs kind of bring us to the place where, again, we don't need to go to desalination. I'll also quote, as been suggested by other speakers here, from your urban water management plan, that, quote, West Basin expects to maintain water supply reliability during normal single dry year and multiple dry year scenarios for the next 25 years without considering desalination. You have the opportunity. I've been to the Little facility twice and gladly and with great joy had that glass of water at the end of the tour. This is what we can do more efficiently and to provide an example for the rest of the planet, frankly. Don't abandon, and I know you've talked about pursuing all of the solutions, but this is an efficient, affordable, immediate solution that you should spend all of your resources on, and consider desalination as only the very last resort. So please, please vote for option 1. And thank you very much. My friends, you folks, have very happy holidays and a very happy new year, and we'll see you in 2022. I'm hoping where I can hug you and thank you for choosing option 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes all of our public comment at this time. I do have one that is online, Naomi Moya. She's having some problems with her speaker, so she's asked that I read this into the record. She also sent it into the chat feature. My name is Naomi, and I am with Surfrider, and this is my comment for item 8A regarding the status and progress report of the ocean water desalination project. I am asking you to vote in favor of option 1 to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply options. We are currently facing a climate emergency, and we cannot afford to invest in ocean desalination, the most energy intensive and expensive water supply option. We are already higher than what's considered safe in the levels of carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. With so many people facing the consequences of climate change and also struggling to pay their bills right now, it is also critically important that West Basin prioritizes more cost-effective local water supplies like recycling and groundwater. Thank you and have a happy holiday.
And President Williams, if you don't mind, I would also like to note that West Basin staff did receive several different emails for the record. We have distributed those to each of the board members here today. We've also scanned and emailed those to all of the board members, so they should be received. At your direction, we could either read through or reference those letters, or we could just take them and add them to the record at this time.
What would you guys like to do?
Add them to the record.
A lot of our duplicates because
right. All of the from this agencies are the same mantra. Add them to the record.
We'll add those to the record. It'll be part of the minutes.
Yes. Okay, well, we bring it back to the board here for comments or discussion. So I think who was on the?
I'll make a very brief comment if I might, Mr. Chairman. Reading from the letter from the president of the League of Women Voters for the Beach Cities. It's time to plan for a diverse portfolio of water supplies as against drought, climate change, and earthquake risk. The League supports building the ocean water desal plant in El Segundo, consistent with environmental mitigation measures proposed by West Basin. And I support that position, but I think my colleague had a substitute motion. I
I
yield
think
to
it
him.
was Director Houston.
Sure. I hadn't quite made the substitute motion, but I'm willing to make a substitute motion because I think there was a motion already on the floor.
Yeah.
If one of you guys left to turn yours on.
There's one on the floor.
There's a motion
On the floor.
and a second that is currently on the floor.
Yes.
So I would make a substitute motion, and that would be to move forward with item 1. The recommendation to direct staff to take appropriate steps to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply options.
I'll second that motion.
There's a second to the substitute motion. And as I understand it, we have to disperse with the substitute motion first.
Well, you have an option, Chair, on how you wish to proceed. The strict rules would require you to basically pull or take a vote of the board whether or not the second motion becomes the main motion.
Oh.
So, or you can simply direct that the second motion be acted on upon first. It's your choice.
Substitute motion is in order.
Yes, it's perfected, it's in order. So you had your choice.
Why wouldn't we follow the procedure for dealing with the second substitute motion?
You may take this substitute motion first if you desire.
Okay, then I think we ought to vote on the substitute motion first.
Okay, well, can we
discuss it?
Discussion, yeah.
We have discussion of the substitute motion?
Yes.
We can do that.
Perfect. So I just want to make a few comments, and first and foremost, I just want to, and I hope, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, just making sure. I just want to say
Director Houston, it doesn't look like your microphone is on.
It isn't, it's not.
Oh, they're saying it is. I apologize.
I can't see it either. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Okay, first of all, thanks to everybody for bearing with us, and thank you to everyone who commented and sent us emails, which did get provided to us. I first of all think it's very excellent when we have the level of public participation that we experienced here. And of course, I said it before and I reiterate it, I really wish people would participate with us more often. So in the future, I do hope you'll bear with us and continue to come and see us at West Basin or watch these meetings and talk to us. But what I wanted to talk about today, of course, was the decision that's before us. And I feel that based on the presentation today and based on the information that's been presented to us over time, that I do strongly support option 1. And I think that we have to take the steps to look at alternative water supply options. Water use is down across our service area. We do not have the need for this additional water supply, nor can we justify its expense and place this burden on our residents. West Basin does have a proud legacy as a leader in water management, including in the areas of water recycling and conservation, as so many have pointed out. We've also done extensive research and pilot programs on ocean desal that have guided California water policy and law. And I do think that's something that was mentioned earlier by the speakers, something to be proud of. I've always believed as a coastal agency and serving on this board that it has been incumbent upon us to look at every option to ensure reliable water supply. And that does include evaluating ocean desalination as part of our portfolio. And that's what we have done. And we have done our due diligence in looking at this option and analyzing its environmental impacts as well as the fiscal impacts. What I think is clear is that we do have a number of options before us that still need to be exhausted before embarking on building a desalination facility in this district. I think we have tremendous opportunities to look at partnerships with our neighboring agencies, working with the City of Los Angeles, LA Sanitation, LADWP, Water Replenishment District, County of Los Angeles, and Metropolitan Water District, and also working with our community-based organizations, our labor partners, and our business and community leaders and residents, as well as our environmental friends. The costs associated with ocean desalination are simply untenable for this district. I think we need to focus on the facts. We need to focus on the numbers. It is clear that our service area's water use is down. We're using less water now while experiencing population growth. And I think that's a testament to this board's efforts on conservation and water efficiency, and to West Basin's residents answering the call to reduce your water use. We've got a number of other options to evaluate and pursue, including the increased use of groundwater storage and pumping, as well as the long-term viability of direct potable reuse. This agency has led on water recycling, and we've led on conservation. And I believe that's where our focus should be. And in fact, our own 2020 Urban Water Management Plan directly shows that we have sufficient water supplies to meet the demands of our service area for the next 25 years. So, tremendous amount of work has been done. Our staff they provided the research and analysis to the request from the DIL certified. Can you hear me now? Okay. I don't know where I ended with this. Oh, perfect. Okay. Almost done, you guys. So back to this, I would say a tremendous amount of work has been done to get us to this point, and our staff and our consultants have done what we've asked them. You provided us the research and analysis that was requested when we certified the EIR back in 2019. And in the end, this is a policy decision, and the decision rests on the members of this board to evaluate and decide how to proceed. So I want to say I appreciate and respect all of the positions and opinions that were expressed, both the phone calls, the emails, the speakers today. I do believe there's a place for ocean water desalination, but I've also come to the conclusion for West Basin, it should be an option of last resort. And I don't think we're anywhere near that point at West Basin. So I'd like to see us vigorously pursue other water supply sources and regional collaboration. And I would like to urge that that's the direction we move forward with. And I also would call upon all of our partners to join us in this effort. Thank you very much. And thank you to staff for this report today.
Next.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Director Gray. I made comments earlier, and I just want to add to those comments. I don't think a vote to support option 2 is to say we're not pursuing the other resources or sources of water. I certainly support water recycling, stormwater capture, all those sources that we should continue to pursue. So I don't think that's an indication. I've heard comments about that, especially from the Director Houston. I think it just means that ocean desal is still an option on the table. My support of option 2 is not to say that we need to look at building an ocean water plant now. It just means that we should leave the option on the table and continue to pursue all of those other factors because they are very important. And so I just want to add that, and I thank the public for their comments today. And again, it's a hard decision, but it's a futuristic decision for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
Okay, I will. I have a
Speak
couple.
Closer to the mic.
I have a couple of comments, and I will keep my comments short. Okay, just want to recognize that West Basin has invested and done a significant amount of work in developing a lot of great information over the 20 years that it's invested in the development of ocean desalination technology.
Still, can you bring the mic closer to you, please?
Okay, is that better?
A little closer. Oh, 2 masks. Can you take one of your masks off?
Okay, is that better?
That's better.
All right. So West Basin needs to be commended for all of the effort and all of the research that it has sponsored. That research has been widely used and disseminated. Thank God we are a public agency and that all of that information is in the public domain. And it is to the benefit of many, many researchers and other agencies out in the water and in the professional technical community. So to that effort, all of that work and that expenditure of funds has not been for naught. When we do look at the ocean desalination as part of the West Basin water portfolio, it really does not have a place in it, and the proposed location for it is troublesome. So at this time, I really think that we ought to pursue our other options, and we have many, as have been well documented in the staff report. Not so much in the presentation, but I think if you read the report itself, the written report is fairly comprehensive, and it does lead you to the conclusion that ocean desalination is no longer needed, and specifically states it is not part of the West Basin portfolio, as was approved in the water management plan that we adopted earlier this summer. I think we ought to focus on water conservation. We have a lot of additional potential. We've achieved a lot in water conservation that was demonstrated by some of the slides, but there is a tremendous additional potential in water conservation that can be achieved. We need to continue our efforts in that area. They have been very good in the past, and I think that we need to focus more on outdoor water conservation. We've done tremendous efforts and really achieved significant water conservation and indoor water use, but we really need to focus on outdoor water use, and we can probably more than match the amount of water conservation that's been achieved through indoor water use. We need to increase the use of our local water supply, especially groundwater and stormwater usage. These are tremendous assets in this region that have not been maximized in the past, and will greatly help us get through both droughts and become much more self-reliant. At the end of the day, we ought to be looking at self-reliancy, and ocean desalination may be one way to do that, but it's a very expensive way to do it, and there are much better ways that are available to us. And I think that if we focus on that, and then the reuse of wastewater, we have made investments in the past, and we have investments to make in the future, but we have tremendous potential to really achieve a significant amount of portable water that can be produced from wastewater. And I think that those should be the focuses for West Basin. And for those reasons, it is time to terminate our efforts, which redirect our resources, and we have limited resources. We can't do everything under the sun. We have many more important things to do, and not continue to have the ocean desalination program sap our both energy and financial resources. For that reason, I will be supporting the motion to terminate the ocean desalination project.
All right, thank you. I think everyone has spoken. Okay, well, I'll put my 2 cents in. Now, I've been looking. Can you hear me? It looks like all the lights are on. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, I've been looking at the ocean water desalination from afar for a long time. Back in 2009, as far back as that, I was, you know me from back in the day when I used to report to you. But anyway, but it's the same old refrain when it comes to ocean water desalination. It costs too much. It costs too much. It costs too much. It's killing the environment. And until we get past that, ocean water desalination is not going to be popular. But That's not the reason why I no longer support West Basin's ocean water desalination program at this time because of time. I have, there is no open public support for our project. No, you see the same people come here at every meeting that we have saying ocean water desalination is not the way to go. It's the same folks. And the other thing is that there are two projects, two very large recycled water projects that have overshadowed ocean water desalination. And they are, I've said this before, the Metropolitan Sand District's recycled, regional recycled water program that's going to be producing DPR at 150 million gallons a day. It's a lot of water. And everybody speaks glowingly of that project, right? All of the environmentalists rave about the project in public. There's this city of Los Angeles, One Water program. Their plan is to recycle 100% of the wastewater that comes out of Hyperion. So that little bits that they allow us to get, that we recycle, that we get a lot of acclaim for, what is it, 40 million gallons a day? What is that? Is that right? Everybody likes that, right? But that's not our water. We don't have a wastewater treatment plant. We're importing that water from LA, because that's not even water coming from the South Bay. Okay? So that's another 150 million gallons a day, I believe. Then the lack of a suitable site. We don't have a site that would work for our project. The site that has been, we're counting on, we just have one site to look at, and that one is awful. And then the other thing that we don't have, that I'd love to see, and I thought we had, was a willing partner. We could not do this alone. We can't afford it. We can't afford to go alone. Then, I'll end with this, is everyone's talking about stormwater capture. Stormwater capture. And in the county of LA, we passed a measure back a year ago or so. It's the county's Measure W, Stormwater Capture Program. Lots of money in that program now. So everyone is looking at that. So no one is going to come out and support us for our recycled water program when they have these other alternatives. So that's why I no longer support the ocean water desalination program at the level that I did back when I first got started here in West Basin. That was back in 2015. So that when I just sat there, based on all the other reasons that were given in the report by staff, I would be for supporting stepping away from desal at this time. So with that, my comments, and I think it's time for a call for a vote. Okay, will you restate the motion again, please?
Yes, President Williams. The recommended motion is on packet page 55. The motion states that the board pursue one of the following options, and the board, with a motion and a second, chose option 2 to bring forward for a vote at this time, option 1, which is direct staff to take appropriate steps to terminate the ocean water desalination project and pursue alternative water supply options.
So
That's
is,
the motion that's on the floor.
that's on the floor. Are we clear? We're going on the substitute motion. All right, is that clear? All right, call the question.
Director Alvarez.
I vote yes, and just to be very clear, that the substitute motion is to direct staff to take appropriate steps to terminate the ocean water desalination program and pursue alternative water supply options.
Director Deere.
I vote no.
Director Gray.
No.
Director Houston.
I vote yes. Thank you.
And President Williams.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-2.
So what's the next step?
Yes, President Williams. The next action item that we have on our agenda is item 8B, resolution number 12-21-1150. This is the reauthorization of the Brown Act provisions for virtual meetings. And for this brief presentation, we do have our legal counsel, Martin Kazanowicz, from our legal team of AMLO here for the presentation.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. President, board members, this item will be before you on a monthly basis. We spoke about it a month ago. This is simply a reauthorization of the steps that you took, which allow you to conduct virtual meetings in order to protect the public and the staff in the time of the pandemic. The pandemic continues. The state of emergency in the state continues to be in place. This item is before you for your ratification or confirmation. As long as you wish to meet virtually, you should adopt this resolution in order to continue to do so for the next 30 days. I'll answer any questions you may have.
I'll move. I move we pass the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we pass the resolution. Any questions or then we call the question, please?
Director Alvarez. Director Deere.
Yes.
Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Houston.
Yes.
And President Williams.
Yes.
And it is noted that Director Alvarez did step out of the room. Correct.
Okay, the next item.
Yes, President Williams. The next handful of items are, I'll give you an overview of those really quickly. Due to the Brown Act and the notice requirements, several of these next items are included on our action calendar. However, under normal circumstances, they would have been included under consent because they did go through committee both yesterday and Monday. And so I'll quickly go through each one, and if we can take an action on it, we can move through this fairly quickly.
So that would be C through
J.
C through J. Okay.
So item 8C is the approval of the minutes. At the Finance and Administration Committee on December 20th, the committee did recommend approval of the minutes, and we do have 3 sets. November 10th, the Engineering and Operations Committee. November 12th, a special board meeting minutes, and November 22nd, the regular board meeting minutes.
You need a motion to approve them all. I still.
That's correct.
I move approval.
It's been moved by Director Deere to approve all of the items C through J. 8C. Second?
I second.
It's seconded by Director Gray. Call the question, please.
President Williams, if I might add, on item J, which is redistricting and consulting services.
Oh, yeah.
That item was brought to the Policy and Legislation Committee. The committee did vote to move it to the full board, but the chairwoman did mention that today any member of the board could comment on that. So if we were to move the entire list, that would include item J. Obviously, the directors could comment on the block vote and make their comments known on that, or we could take that separately.
What is the pleasure of the board?
And if I may, Mr. President, just to add to what the general manager said, the motion for all the items does not preclude any of you from discussing any individual item in that motion. So should you desire to discuss J, or if you wish to separate it in a separate motion, you also may do that.
As the maker of the motion, I'll move to separate J out from the motion.
Okay, the seconder.
I second it. I mean, I agree.
Okay,
Amend
so
the
we'll
motion.
take them out. J comes out. Okay? Should we vote now?
Yes, Director Alvarez.
Okay, I am not voting yes on all of the items, and I will vote, so I'm just going to point out the items I'm voting no on. And I'm voting no on the item 8D, sponsoring the 2022 Water Use Symposium. I'm voting no on item E, 8E, which is the sponsorship of various events. And I am voting no on the,
We're taking those moments.
I'm sorry?
I could be wrong, sorry for interrupting you, but I don't think we're on those items yet. Are we taking them all at once?
That was the vote?
That's what my understanding was. The election calendar, we usually take them separately.
The motion was to take them out.
I'm not going to motion, I'm misunderstood my motion.
So far, we've been here a long time.
I was wondering why we were doing that.
And then my other motion was to vote no. I'm trying to figure out which one it is, and that is the one on the reserve. I do not agree with and do not find the justification to that more convincing. That we need to have $8 million in reserve general fund revenue, and which far exceeds our requirement of 1.15 ratio for reserves, covering our budget and everything. And then operation is reasonable, but not the $50 million that we're holding. The additional impact of ratepayer, this is money that we don't need to realistically go back to our ratepayers, and for be used to fund projects and not to continue to incur debt as we recently did with the award of a project we need to finance it to debt financing, where we definitely have to tax. I'm voting no on that particular item. I do want my comment for reasons to object to the reserve policy to be noticed.
And Director Alvarez, I'd like to just clarify. So you're okay with items I1, 2, 3, and it's 4 related to the debt management policy? Okay, we have you listed as no on voting on item I1, 2, 3, and 4. And as mentioned prior to taking and discussing these items, this item was reviewed and recommended for approval by the Finance Administration Committee just earlier this week on Monday. Correct.
This direction looks like the comments, but as far as the motion.
No.
Okay.
Correct.
You can't do it. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm making a motion to approve the entire item 8, and for the record, I attended all the committee meetings that brought forth recommendations, so I've been informed of these.
Okay.
So should we proceed with the roll call vote?
Yes.
Director Alvarez with those noted no votes?
Yes, and the remainder.
Director Deere?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
Director Houston?
Yes.
And President Williams?
Yes.
that does bring us to item 8J, and this is related to redistricting consulting services. West Basin staff member Matt Bay did provide an overview to the Water Policy and Legislation Committee recommending an approval that the directors authorize the interim general manager to enter into a professional service agreement for a not to exceed amount of $50,000 for Lucian Partners on behalf of the Redistricting Collaborative to comply with all federal, state, and local legal requirements for special redistricting in connection to the 2020 United States Census. And as I mentioned, the chair did move this item with a vote of 2-0, but did mention that if any members of the committee or board that would like to make a comment, they could do so here today.
Comments?
I have a comment slash question. I'm just trying to protect myself, but I'll remove the mask. Okay, I do have a comment. I'd like to have a little bit more explanation on phase 1, which is 15,000, and then the phase 2 portion was 35,000. And then I may have some follow-up, but could you expand on that a little bit more?
Yes, recognizing that the cost of redistricting could be excessive and cost the district quite a bit of money, what staff tried to do is actually carve out 2 potential paths. One would be an initial evaluation of the current West Basin divisions, the 5 divisions, to see if it's equal population or close to, and then of course analyze those districts to make sure that we were in compliance and not close to being, violating any sort of state and federal election laws. So what our intent was to do is just have a minimal content or scope to move forward. We bring that back to the board of directors for an overview of that first step. And then of course it would be the board of directors that decided if they wanted to move forward with the phase 2. And we do have Matt Bay here, West Basin staff, as well as the consultant, the bid, if they have anything to add to those comments.
I think I got an answer, unless somebody else wants to hear more. I got the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
My understanding, and it was kind of confirmed in the earlier item when we talked about changes in the population in West Basin, that the West Basin population pretty much is static. I don't think there's much change, and not significantly over 5% in any of the division boundaries. So I think it would be appropriate to do that analysis and just confirm what the populations abound or in each district boundaries are, or divisions, I should say, boundaries are, and that the division boundaries are pretty much okay as is. I don't see any desire to alter division boundaries. I don't think there's any need to alter division boundaries. They're pretty well set. They geographically make sense. There's no need for critical adjustment. So I think that phase 1, spending $15,000 is all that is required, and we don't need to go beyond that. We're not going to be really changing the boundaries or anything else. And I would urge that we just support spending $15,000, not $50,000.
Director Alvarez, just to point one thing out, we do have a mandatory deadline of submitting to the state and county by April. And as such, if West Basin staff and our consultants were to come back to the board with a presentation and the board chose to alter and move into that phase 2 and voted to do so, it would require us to bring forth an amendment to the agreement to add that $35,000, and it would put us somewhat close to that deadline. So I would just point that out.
I think that at the time that you bring that recommendation forward and the board then changes its direction and wishes to change the division boundaries, at that same meeting, there would be a concurrent recommendation going along with it that you would need the additional $35,000. You've already gone through the process and so on, and the board can so choose to authorize it since it needs that work done. That will not delay it. And I'm the one that pointed out last month and asked that this item be brought back. I'm very cognizant of the fact that this needs to be done, and our time frame for getting this done was running short.
So
Mr. Chair, did Director Alvarez finish?
He's finished.
All right, thank you. I had the same question about the process, but it's already been explained. I think we need to listen to the analysis that's going to be brought back after the first phase and make a decision. Appreciate the comments the Director Alvarez made, but I think we need to have the analysis. And what I understand is that we're only approving the first phase of it. It'll be brought back to the board, and the board can make a decision on what to do moving forward. So thank you for pulling that item.
Okay, is there any other questions, comments? What is the,
I'll just make a comment. Doesn't,
well, quickly.
Sure. I do, I understand the sentiments of everyone. My opinion, of course, is to get this done as quickly as possible, and I've already talked to the general manager about it in the sense of, I think that we're going to get a report back on phase one, correct, EJ?
That is correct.
Mhm.
And then that's when we would make a decision before we proceed further. But I also believe that when that comes back, the first phase with us, we need to, if we have to go further, be very judicious if we need to proceed. Because I also don't think we need to, but we obviously have to, so go to phase two. I want to make sure that we're going to really be watching the need and the costs, but I'm hopeful we don't need to do that. Thank you.
Okay, state the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Make the motion.
My motion is to authorize the general manager to enter into professional services agreement for not to exceed amount of $15,000 with Ocean Partners on behalf of the redistricting collaborative to comply with all the federal, state, and local legal requirements for special redistricting in connection to the 2020 United States Census, and that when those recommendations come back, that is the end of phase one, that if there is a phase two, a need for a phase two, that concurrent with that would be then the recommendation to award additional funding to implement phase two.
Wouldn't staff's recommendation cover that?
What is?
I just wanted to clarify it.
But
Just to make this very clear, this is actually different than the staff recommendation. This includes, if you look at board packet 305, the motion on the floor entertains the concept of just pursuing phase one at $15,000. When that presentation comes back and the board has the opportunity to look at the presentation and see the makeup of division 1 through 5, at that time the board would instruct staff as to how to proceed. And of course, if they wanted to, they could amend this agreement to add phase two for an additional $35,000 for us to redraw the lines.
Mr. President, may I be heard on this?
yes.
Thank you. A couple of items that I'd like the board to consider on this before voting. First of all, the deadline is in April. This needs to be accomplished by April. As I understand it, this project went out for invitations for RFP. So the person, the sole responder on this funded based on the entire contract. What I'm hearing the board propose is changing that agreement, one phase agreement, and which would require a new agreement to be entered into, and arguably going out again for invitations for that agreement. Time is of the essence, and also companies that do this type of work are very few and far in between. And as we get closer to that April deadline, they may be too busy to jump back in and do the work. So I understand the concern about the financial boundaries and keeping it close reins on how much money is spent on the first phase. However, I'd like to put this on the table just for the board to consider, because those things could delay the project past the deadline that's provided by the law.
If I could, I'd like to just address a comment the general counsel made. I'm very appreciative of the RFP process. I think I addressed that in my motion, that in the event that we proceed with phase 2, that would be brought back then to spend the additional money. The way the staff report is presenting the information is that there are 2 phases. There's definitely 2 phases that were identified in the proposal, since we were given a number of $15,000 for phase 1 and $35,000 for phase 2. So I assumed that came out of the proposal, and it wasn't just a number that was made up by staff. Therefore, it is consistent with what the consultant proposed, and that they anticipated that it would be done in 2 phases, and that they would complete the phase 1 and that phase 2 may not be required. So I don't mean to shortchange the RFP process. I respect it very much. We have a proposal. I'm not asking that another one be put out. What I am contesting is the insinuation that we have to award this thing at $50,000, because that is what a proposal was. The proposal consisted of 2 phases, and I'm only willing to, at this time, approve phase 1.
But just a minute. This is not a public works project, right?
No.
So we can change
Anything we
want when we want to. So if you wanted to award for the $15,000 portion of the work, what's wrong with that? Yes.
The approval would be for a contract for $15,000.
Yes.
That would be what the board would approve at this point in time.
Right.
And there is no existing contract for the additional phase 2, which means that when the phase 2 would come up, technically speaking, based on our own internal procurement, it's a separate job, a separate contract. So whether or not we decide to file it, or whether or not we sole source it to the people who have done phase 1, my concern is that potentially, unless they know that they're under contract for both phases, if second phase is needed, they may be too busy, they may not have time, I'm just trying to point out the complication that could occur.
Since it's not a public works contract, we could do a change order to take care of that.
We could.
This is not a big deal. I mean, why are we?
All right, so staff is happy to pursue option 1. We'll work with the consultant to bring that up. At that time, if we see any cause of concern related to state and federal law, we would note that and obviously bring that amendment to you and to phase 2. If, of course, the board chooses for another reason outside of the potential violation of state and federal law, we could pursue that as well. So staff is not concerned. The intent of this item was to be time and material basis. We wanted to just divide it out so that we weren't guaranteeing a consultant money that maybe we wouldn't spend.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, may I speak? Because I'm totally confused with so much conversation. Can I ask the question? What is the staff's recommendation? Can you clearly state what staff's recommendation is?
The recommendation that staff produced in the board packet is that the board of directors authorize the interim general manager to enter into a professional services agreement for a not to exceed amount of $50,000 with Lucian Partners on behalf of the redistricting collaborative to comply with all federal, state, and local legal requirements for special district redistricting in connection to the 2020 United States Census.
And that's for 15,000. 50.
Correct.
And that's the first phase?
No, that consists of both phases, but it would be time and material. We would not proceed with, regardless of how we do this, we would not proceed with phase 2 unless directed by the board. Staff was just trying to do this in a quick, prudent way, but we're happy to do it however the board decides.
Mr. Chairman. All right. Well, I move the staff recommendation unless there's a motion on the floor.
There is a motion on the floor.
Okay.
What? You didn't hear a second? Well, then did you hear no second? Well, then there's no motion on the floor.
All right. Well, I move the staff recommendation.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded that we approve staff's recommendation. We've had enough discussion. Yeah. Call for the question.
Yes, Director Alvarez.
No.
Director Deere,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes.
Director Houston, and President Williams.
Yes.
And I'll just add this, I mentioned it already, but staff takes this stuff very seriously. We would not proceed with phase 2 of the scope unless directed to by the board of directors.
Understand.
I believe 10 years ago, we had an ad hoc committee that worked on this issue, but I realize we're at a time pressure situation now. So we've got to move on this.
Yes. But we're not likely to make any changes. But anyway, next item.
President Williams, the next item that we have is our information calendar. We do not have any items under our information calendar.
How about receive and file?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept receive and file in one motion. We'll call for the question.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Director Deere.
Yes.
Director Houston. Excuse me, I apologize. I skipped. Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Houston. And President Williams.
Yes. That takes us to item 11, the general manager's activity report.
Yes, President Williams, and I'll try to be very brief, but I do have a number of items that I'd like to go through. First and foremost, today, the Association of California Water Agencies did announce its 2022 committee assignments, and several members of the West Basin team have been placed on those committees. So I wanted to just highlight those here today. On the Federal Affairs Committee is Director Scott Houston. On the Communications Committee is Melissa Buendia. On the Membership Committee, Julie Frazier Matthews. On the Water Management Committee, EJ Caldwell. And on the Water Quality Committee, Ms. Uzi Daniel. So West Basin does have great representation there at AQUA. I think it'll be a great opportunity to really expand and work with them to build support for our initiatives. The AQUA Fall Conference did take place on November 30th and December 2nd. Directors Gray, Director Houston, Director Alvarez did attend, and I know that Director Williams attended virtually. Obviously, there were several great items that were presented there at AQUA, really focusing in on the current status of the Stillwater project, as well as the Colorado River Aqueduct and the potential impacts to Southern California. We do have materials for those, so if any member of the board would like, we can disperse those to you. The Colorado River Water Users Association took place their annual conference on December 14th through December 16th. In the midst of a drought on the Colorado River, the Colorado River Water Users Association conference served as the backdrop for the 500+ plan, a coordinated effort between Nevada, Arizona, California to keep 500,000 acre-feet in Lake Mead beginning in 2022. This obviously, Metropolitan Water District and our very own chairwoman, Director Gray, played a significant part in this, and it was very momentous. I think it was celebrated there at the conference. It includes $200 million incentives for reducing your demand on Colorado River. So I think that if you look at those states, I think that there's going to be a lot of support for that. Third, the Suez-Veolia merger. On December 14th, the European Commission approved the deal, and it is expected that the final deal will close or occur around the end of January. Suez staff informed West Basin staff that they do not anticipate needing to change contracts, issuance documents, invoicing procedures, etc. after the closing date, as it will take time for Veolia, approximately 3 to 6 months, to go through some of the organization, structural, and procedural changes. A name change has not been confirmed, though the assumption has been made that it may change the name to Veolia. Currently has for the region Veolia Water West Operation Services Incorporated. We have had a lot of activity from our ad hoc committees, and I do want to thank all of the members of the board of directors. We have a lot of meetings throughout the month, and when we have these ad hoc meetings, it's just an added thing to your schedule, and I want you to know that I greatly appreciate it. The Blue Desalter Ad Hoc Committee met on Monday, December 20th. We are currently working, obviously, to set the plan and the course for the decommissioning of the Brewer Desalter. We're working in conjunction with Cal Water Service Company, as well as the Water Replenishment District. The next meeting is January 10th. The City of Los Angeles Ad Hoc Committee did meet on Thursday, December 9th. At that time, we discussed the potential extension of a memorandum of agreement with LADWP as well as LA SAN. And this would be in pursuit of the MBR pilot project there at Hyperion. The next meeting would take place on Monday, December 27th, so that'll take place next week. And the Desal Ad Hoc Committee met on Thursday, December 16th. At that time, we talked and planned in coordination of this meeting and just went through some of the information that would be provided here today in order to make sure that we had everything we needed. The upcoming board and committee meetings probably have been emailed to you, but I will ensure that they are. The MWD caucus meeting will take place on Wednesday, January 5th. So just after the new year, West Basin staff has already begun the process of working with MWD staff to coordinate our speakers. We expect to have a presentation on what was done in Las Vegas just last week. We have an E&O committee Wednesday, January 12th at 4 p.m. We have the Public Information and Education Committee Thursday, January 13th. Water Policy and Legislation Committee, January 18th. Finance and Administration Committee, Wednesday, January 19th. Our regular board meeting, Monday, January 24th. And the West Basin Financing Corporation will also take place that day, Monday, January 24th. With that, I would like to just really quickly let you know that obviously we are upon the holiday season. West Basin Municipal Water District will be closing its office for Christmas holiday, Thursday, December 23rd, as well as Friday, December 24th. I really do want to wish our entire board a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. To our staff, I want to say thank you for all that you're doing. It's been a tremendous year, and I wish you all the best during the holiday season and New Year. And then, of course, we will be closing our offices again the following week, New Year's, and that'll be Thursday, December 30th, as well as Friday, December 31st. And that concludes my report, although I did want to remind you that it was discussed yesterday that we would be adjourning in memorial of Director Willard Murray.
Thank you, President, directors. I've distributed the report on the legal work that was performed since the last meeting. I'm not going to go through all of that, but feel free individually to contact me if you have any questions regarding any of it. Most of our work this month was focused on the Hyperion Pump Station warranty project, amendments to the financial policies, some personnel matters, as well as the Hyperion spill damages and claim evaluation. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Move on to number 13, which would be the 18, 12, 34, and 40. Minor.
I do,
I have nothing to report.
Mr. President.
I submitted a written report.
Yeah, just really briefly, on the 1st of December, I attended the Aqua Fall Conference in Pasadena. And on December 14th and 15th, I attended the CRUA conference in Las Vegas. General Manager already talked about some of the events that transpired there. I will tell you both conferences were excellent. It was great to be in person at those. I think most everybody in the water community was really happy to see each other again. There was a lot of good dialogue that happens not only in the sessions, but in the hallways. And of course in Pasadena, actually outside the building, right there on the patio. So those were great conferences. Happy to talk offline about any of the things that were discussed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Director Gray, can you hear me? Yes, I will report the conferences on my AB 1234 form, but I did attend Aqua. I believe West Basin sponsored the trip for me. And I want to congratulate staff and Director Houston for being selected to be on the committees for Aqua. Also, I was chosen as president of Region 8, and so I offer or encourage any of our board members or staff to provide any suggested topics for discussion for different sessions or whatever workshops for this coming year. So I really would encourage you to provide that to me or any of the other folks on Region 8, but certainly I represent West Basin on Region 8, so please do that. CROA, I did attend CROA. I'm not sure if that was West Basin, but I did attend it. It was a great conference, and EJ already talked about some of the very significant things that happened there, so I won't go over that. But those are the two conferences I believe were sponsored by West Basin that I attended. And I do want to also say thank you to staff for being as diligent and great staffers for this organization, just committed to making sure that West Basin continues to be, to continue to have the kind of reputation, great stellar reputation that it has. And it's only because of the people who work there. And certainly I want to congratulate EJ for being our interim general manager. You've done a great job carrying forth the work of the general manager. So thank you for that. And thank you, fellow board members, for being colleagues on the board and for, having a great debate on very important issues. So I wish all of you happy holidays and a safe holiday. Thank you. And that's to the staff also. Bye-bye. Thank you. Oh, one person I wanted to mention, Julie certainly has been our board administrative person, and Julie has always been very supportive of the board. So thank you, Julie. But thanks to all the managers and all the staff folks there at West Basin.
All right, well, thank you very much. That takes us to closed session.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. One item for board consideration, closed session, that's conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one case.
Okay, well, at this time, we will recess this meeting and move into closed session. So you guys are going to wait for us when we come out? All right, we're in recess, but we can't invite you.
You guys do indeed make us look good with all the things that you do. I just want to say it's not lost on me, all the work that does go on behind the scenes. So I want to personally say thank you. This has been one crazy and up and down year. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about on multiple levels. And I think we have better days ahead of us. But also, I'm concerned as well with the virus and how it keeps on mutating and presenting challenges. But I know that we have done a good job staying ahead of that curve here, and we're going to keep on doing that. So again, thanks to everybody. Thanks to staff. Thanks to our attorney. Thank you, Julie, and your team. And once again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Look forward to seeing everybody next year.
Thank you very much.
I want to echo those comments. That's all.
That's okay. All right, next, Director Alvarez.
I have a couple of agenda items that I would like, and I'll talk about those and then some closing statements for the year. In terms, we are at the end of the year or the midpoint of our fiscal year. I would like to have a mid-year summary of our budget status, where we have a breakdown of our operating revenues, actual operating revenues through December for 6 months, and operating expenditures, actual operating expenditures, and or monies encumbered for this fiscal year, and see where we are. I would also like the process to get started for the next year budget. I found that this past year, when we went through the 21-22 budget process, that it tended, in my opinion, to be rushed. I would like to have the process start a little bit sooner, so that our budget can be better explained and our questions answered. So I would like to see that coming back sooner this year. I would also like a report on the service purchased by Veolia, which is a French-owned company that was brought up earlier. Do we need to consent to assignment of a new operator, and has that been done? I also like to have a closed session item for the next board meeting for the performance evaluation of our general counsel. And it has been a very interesting and challenging year. This month brings my first year as a board member of the West Basin Board to a conclusion. It's been challenging in many ways, but I think it's been gratifying also. I'm glad that all of the time and effort that all of the board members have put in actually do produce results. And I know that we all work very hard. And I wanted to thank all the board members and for all of their efforts, and want to just express my gratitude for being part of this board this past year, and to thank staff for all of the work that they've done. I know that sometimes I can be a little bit demanding. That isn't going to change, but thank you for all of your help and all of the work that you do in answering questions and so on. And with that, I'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and looking forward to challenging times for 2022.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone, and thanks to staff for a great year's work. And let's hope next year is a better year. Thank you.
Okay, well, a lot has been said, and I won't repeat it. And I just want to say that to all of you, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and to all those you care about. Thank you.
And President Williams, yes, the board.
We have to
Adjourn
in memory of Willard Murray. Anyone else in the memoriam? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and of course, as always, staff. And thank you to the members of the general public for participating today.